Chapter 358. In the eyes of many tribulation transcender powerhouses, Zhang Xi was a very good successor, and at the same time he could help them a bit. As a young cultivator, being able to pass the third trial of the Heavenspan Mountain after cultivating for 10 years in the ancient Tao source world was already very talented. If there were no accidents in the future, it wouldn't be a big problem for him to reach the tribulation transcender realm. However, these tribulation transcender powerhouses also understood that they were just there to accompany him. Because among the tribulation transcender powerhouses of the Purple Heaven sect in Nine Firmaments City, the strength and fame of Wine Sword Immortal and Sword Immortal Nangong far surpassed them. With these two immortals, Zhang Xi's chances of becoming their disciple were very small, compared to Wine Sword Immortal and Sword Immortal Nangong. In the past 50,000 years, Wine Sword Immortal had been in a depressed state and didn't teach anyone. Sword Immortal Nangong became the most famous tribulation transcender powerhouse in Nine Firmaments City. Some people even guessed that if Wine Sword Immortal hadn't suddenly announced 10 years ago, Zhang Xi would most likely have chosen Sword Immortal Nangong as his disciple. But now there was a change. Even though Wine Sword Immortal had been silent for 50,000 years, his popularity hadn't decreased, and he was still the #1 immortal. This time, Zhang Xi will definitely become my disciple. Sword Immortal Nangong was very confident, and his words were like a challenge to Wine Sword Immortal. In a palace near Nine Firmaments Palace, Wine Sword Immortal was leisurely drinking wine and singing in the attic, but his singing was out of tune. Immortal Ping was still the only audience. After Wine Sword Immortal finished singing, she smiled and said, "Big brother Zhongli, Sword Immortal Nangong has spoken. Aren't you worried at all? This kind of thing can't be rushed. That Nangong guy has been fighting with me for 10,000 years. I didn't expect him to still be like this. Let him be in the limelight first," Wine Sword Immortal said with a smile. The next day, Wine Sword Immortal's lesson started again. Sword Immortal Nangong seemed to have purposely changed the time of the Dharma lesson to this day. According to the rules of becoming a disciple, after the young cultivators of the ancient Tao source world passed the third trial of the Heavenspan Mountain, if they wanted to become the disciple of a powerhouse, they had to be under that powerhouse's tutelage. Zhang Xi didn't know what Jiang Dudu had done, nor did he know that he was being targeted by so many tribulation transcender powerhouses. Early in the morning, he tied up his long hair that had not been cut for 10 years, tidied up his clothes, carried a long sword on his back and went out. Walking on the flagstone streets of Nine Firmaments City, he headed toward the palaces of tribulation transcender powerhouses near Nine Firmaments Palace. He passed by the residences of tribulation transcender powerhouses one after another. Finally, he stopped in front of the Wine Sword Immortal's palace and walked in with steady steps. Sigh, the group of tribulation transcender powerhouses who still had a glimmer of hope sighed. But he lost wholeheartedly. Who asked him to be the Wine Sword Immortal? 50,000 years ago, the Wine Sword Immortal had dominated the 9 stellar domains, and was known as the #1 immortal in terms of popularity. If it wasn't for an accident that led to the birth of a heart demon, he would have long become a great Tao immortal. After all, the sword Tao of the Liquor Sword Immortal was already on par with that of a Tao immortal 50,000 years ago. Only Sword Immortal Nangong remained silent for a long while before shaking his head with a smile. Being able to cultivate to such a high level, he naturally wouldn't get angry over such things. He just didn't want to lose to the Wine Sword Immortal. Because it was an open class, Zhang Xi didn't have any restrictions and directly walked in. At this time, the Wine Sword Immortal was sitting at the front of the hall and hadn't started his lecture yet. When he saw Zhang Xi walk in, his expression didn't change at all. But the other cultivators who came to listen to the lecture were in an uproar. Recently, Zhang Xi's name had been known by many cultivators in Nine Firmaments City, below the immortal Tao realm. Many people had heard that this young man who had just arrived in the ancient Tao origin world had passed the third trial of the sky-piercing mountain a few days ago and was quite talented. Obviously, this was the first time Zhang Xi had come to listen to a lecture, so his purpose here was self-evident. They were all guessing whether the Wine Sword Immortal would accept Zhang Xi as his disciple. Under everyone's gaze, Zhang Xi calmly found a place to sit down cross-legged and waited for the Wine Sword Immortal to start his lecture. After about 15 minutes, the Wine Sword Immortal drank a mouthful of wine and started his lecture. Today, let's talk about what is a sword. This sentence instantly stunned all the cultivators in the hall. Cultivators who could enter the ancient Tao origin world naturally had good talent and comprehension, and they all came here to listen to the lecture with swords as their weapon of choice. What was a sword? This question couldn't be more simple. Was there even a need to explain it? The wine sword immortal didn't care about everyone's doubts and continued. I'm sure some people will say that a sword is a type of weapon, a type of ritual tool, or something else. Actually, that's not wrong, but the essence of a sword isn't mentioned. A sword isn't just an object. It's a life with sentience and emotions. If you use a sword to kill people, your sword will be tainted with baleful aura and brutality. If you use a sword to do good, your sword will be tainted with righteousness and peace. Once the sword is tainted with these emotions, it will be like a person and possess the 7 emotions and 6 desires. Many troubles in the world are caused by emotions. If we treat a sword as a life form, in the end we return to the essence. The sword is the heart. If you can reach this level, your sword Tao won't be too bad. Alright, this lecture ends here. All of you can leave now. See you next time. Everyone came back to their senses and realized that 3 days had already passed. They were completely immersed in the wine sword immortal's words. Zhang Xi was also immersed in the lecture. As expected of the wine sword immortal. What was the theory of the sword? It was as if he had been enlightened, and his understanding of the way of the sword had deepened. When everyone was about to leave, Zhang Xi took a deep breath and walked to the front of the hall. Since he had already made his decision, he wouldn't hesitate. Under everyone's gaze, he knelt on the ground and said, "Disciple Zhang Xi is willing to take immortal as my master." Zhang Xi's action caused another commotion. Everyone looked at the wine sword immortal, and wondered if this immortal would take Zhang Xi as his disciple. Good, very good. The wine sword immortal nodded lightly. All the cultivators were instantly filled with envy. The news of Zhang Xi successfully becoming the wine sword immortal's disciple quickly spread. The geniuses had just been stimulated once, and this time they were stimulated again. That was the wine sword immortal. A 9th tribulation transcender who wasn't any weaker than a Tao immortal. This Zhang Xi is really abnormal. Mu Ning muttered and continued to ponder over his next song. Granny once said that if the wine sword immortal could reverse life and death, he would be a top-notch Tao immortal. If Zhang Xi can become his disciple, his competitiveness will greatly increase in the future. Yan Jufeng took a deep breath. Why did he improve so quickly? Kuang Lang found it hard to accept this news and was silent for a long time. The other geniuses were even crazier and worked hard to cultivate. However, it wasn't that easy to become the disciple of a tribulation transcender. They had to pass the 3rd trial of the sky-piercing mountain. And it was even more difficult to become the disciple of a powerhouse like the wine sword immortal. It really depended on their mood. Chapter 359. Misty Mountain Immortal, past the 14th stage of the sky-piercing mountain. Thousand Flames Immortal, past the 16th stage of the sky-piercing mountain. Immortal Ping, past the 15th stage of the sky-piercing mountain. Sword Immortal Nangong, past the 19th stage of the sky-piercing mountain. Zhang Xi carefully browsed through the list. Although I have the experience points panel and don't have to worry about cultivating, choosing a master obviously has its benefits. Who should I choose? Zhang Xi's gaze fell on the wine sword immortal's information. Wine sword immortal, past the 20th stage of the sky-piercing mountain. This level of strength had already surpassed most Tao immortals. Of course, strength was only secondary. Towards the wine sword immortal, he was filled with gratitude. When he first came to the ancient Tao source world, if the wine sword immortal hadn't told him to buy the melody of 10,000 swords, he would have been able to improve his cultivation. He was afraid that he would need to spend a long time exploring and fighting in order to improve his combat skills. This was also the benefit of having a master. With a knowledgeable person guiding him, he would be able to avoid many detours. Moreover, after I finish cultivating in the ancient Tao source world, I'll have to go to the Purple Heaven sect's headquarters. At that time, I'll have to find an opportunity to return the Purple Heaven sword scripture to the sect. This is a dangerous mission. I'll take a tribulation transcender as my master first. It'll be safer in the future. Thinking up to here, Zhang Xi suddenly shook his head and smiled bitterly. Taking a master was just an insurance. because there was another question that he had to ask. Back then, he had been tricked by his master, Taoist Gu, into swearing an oath to return the Purple Heaven Sword scripture to the Purple Heaven sect within 100 years. The key was this the 100 years he had experienced, or was it the 100 years of the original universe's normal flow of time? If it was the latter, then he was done for. This question had always been hidden in Jiang Xi's heart. Occasionally, he would feel apprehensive. Before the end of the 9 Regions Genius Tournament, he hadn't thought that there would be a time difference between the original universe and the ancient Tao source world now. He could only wait for the original universe's 100 years to arrive. He had made the oath in the year 95 of the new moon, and it was now the 154th year of the new moon. According to the time difference between the ancient Tao source world and the original universe, there was still 41 years of the original universes. In other words, the ancient Tao source world's time. In the ancient Tao source world was a Tao source world's time. If I break the oath of the Tao, then my Taoist techniques will no longer be able to use inch force. This cheap master was really a big scammer. Damn it, Jiang Xi sometimes wondered why the Purple Heaven sect had so many big shots of the immortal Tao. Why would such an important inheritance like the Purple Cloud Sword Sutra be broken by Taoist Gu, a Tao integration cultivator? Was there any secret behind this? If there really is some secret, then I have to find a master to rely on. At the same time, in the Milky Way galaxy, planet Dongyuan. As the core life planet of the Milky Way galaxy, planet Dongyuan was even more prosperous. Because Jiang Xi was the lord of the Milky Way galaxy, the headquarters of the Mountain Sea Star Trade had been moved here more than 30 years ago. At this moment, in the Shanghai Interstellar Trade Headquarters in Anlin City on planet Dongyuan, Jiang Dudu, who had a slightly cold temperament, and a late-stage nascent soul female cultivator, under the witness of the all-piercing eye, each of them left their own spiritual sense imprints on a document. Then, the late-stage nascent soul female cultivator smiled and said, "Junior Sister Jiang, you are also a member of the Purple Heaven sect from now on? Senior Sister Yen, you must be joking. I'm not even an outer sect disciple now." Jiang Dudu smiled faintly. Haha, with senior brother Jiang Xi here. As long as junior sister Jiang manages the Mountain Sea Star Trade well, it will be easy for you to become a core disciple of the Purple Heaven sect in the future. Yen Fei was quite friendly. Thank you for your kind words, senior sister Yen. Jiang Dudu smiled. The two of them chatted for a while more before Yen Fei left the Mountain Sea Star Trade. After signing the agreement, Jiang Dudu felt like a stone had been lifted from her heart, and she felt much more at ease. As a late-stage nascent soul cultivator from the Purple Heaven sect, Yen Fei's attitude towards her, a nascent soul cultivator, was very friendly. The reason was very simple. It was because Jiang Xi had passed the 3rd stage of the Skyspan Mountain in the ancient Tao origin world. The talent he had displayed had surpassed the other 2 4th Heaven young geniuses of the Purple Heaven sect. This news had already spread among the disciples of the Purple Heaven sect. Compared to Jiang Xi, Yen Fei was only a 1st Heaven disciple of the Purple Heaven sect. Her status was several levels lower. Chairman, will the Mountain Sea Star Trade be a subsidiary of the Purple Heaven sect in the future? Next to him, the general manager of the Mountain Sea Star Trade, Shen Wanxi, was still a little dizzy. Wen Yoxin and Wen Feng were also very excited. With the Purple Heaven sect behind them, the Mountain Sea Star Trade would develop even faster in the future. That's right, but they will only take the dividends and can't interfere with the operation of the group, Jiang Dudu said with a smile. Jiang Dudu looked at the 3 of them. Yoxin, Wen Feng, Old Shun, now is not the time to relax. The Mountain Sea Star Trade has now reached the scale of 10,000 supreme-grade spirit crystals. We have to reach 100,000 supreme-grade spirit crystals in 50 years. Are you confident? Yes. The 1 siblings and Shen Wanxi were full of motivation. After the 3 of them left, Jiang Dudu looked at the flowing stars in the night sky and gently clenched her fists. The 9th heaven of the Purple Heaven sect is coming soon. She was looking forward to the scene when Jiang Xi finished cultivating in the ancient Tao origin world and went to the headquarters of the Purple Heaven sect. The 9 Zones Genius Tournament was not the only way to become a disciple of the Purple Heaven sect. In addition to the outstanding disciples that the star regions usually sent to the Purple Heaven sect, there were also special talents that could enter the Purple Heaven sect. After all, not everyone was good at cultivation. And a huge immortal Tao sect could not only rely on powerful cultivators to maintain normal operations. He also needed various management type, business type, and other talented cultivators. Not only the top immortal Tao sects of the star regions, but even the 3 gates and 6 sects would conduct business activities. After all, cultivation was ultimately about money. This time Jiang Dudu had done some work. She had made the Mountain Sea Star Trade a subsidiary of the Purple Heaven sect, and successfully entered the Purple Heaven sect. Of course, she was only an outer disciple now. If she wanted to enter the core and become a disciple of the 9th heaven of the Purple Heaven sect, she would need to continue working hard. If a disciple who specializes in business manages a star trade group with a scale of 100,000 supreme grade spirit crystals, they can become a disciple of the 1st heaven of the Purple Heaven sect. 100,000 supreme grade spirit crystals sounded like a small amount. If it was converted into low-grade spirit crystals, it would be a lot. 100 billion low-grade spirit crystals. If not for special circumstances, the first place of the 9 Zones Genius Tournament would only receive this amount of spirit crystals as a reward. They were the top geniuses selected from the billions of humans. For the Mountain Sea Star Trade Group, which had only been established 60 years ago, it would be very difficult to achieve this goal. In 9 Heaven City, the Tribulation Transcender powerhouses of the various sects who were qualified to teach the Purple Heaven sect were secretly competing with each other. 10 years ago, when Jiwei had just passed the 3rd level, a similar situation had occurred. In the end, Jiwei still became a disciple of a Tao Immortal Perfected Lord. This made the Tribulation Transcender powerhouses sigh that they had missed a good disciple. And now Jiang Xi had appeared. Chapter 360. In the eyes of many Tribulation Transcender powerhouses, Jiang Xi was a very good successor, and at the same time he could help them a bit. As a young cultivator, being able to pass the 3rd trial of the Heavenspan Mountain after cultivating for 10 years in the ancient Tao Source world was already very talented. If there were no accidents in the future, it wouldn't be a big problem for him to reach the Tribulation Transcender realm. However, these Tribulation Transcender powerhouses also understood that they were just there to accompany him. Because among the Tribulation Transcender powerhouses of the Purple Heaven sect in 9 Firmament City, the strength and fame of Wine Sword Immortal and Sword Immortal Nangong far surpassed them. With these 2 immortals, Jiang Xi's chances of becoming their disciple were very small, compared to Wine Sword Immortal and Sword Immortal Nangong. In the past 50,000 years, Wine Sword Immortal had been in a depressed state and didn't teach anyone. Sword Immortal Nangong became the most famous Tribulation Transcender powerhouse in 9 Firmament City. Some people even guessed that if Wine Sword Immortal hadn't suddenly announced 10 years ago, Jiang Xi would most likely have chosen Sword Immortal Nangong as his disciple. But now there was a change. Even though Wine Sword Immortal had been silent for 50,000 years, his popularity hadn't decreased, and he was still the number 1 immortal. This time, Jiang Xi will definitely become my disciple. Sword Immortal Nangong was very confident, and his words were like a challenge to Wine Sword Immortal. In a palace near 9 Firmaments Palace, Wine Sword Immortal was leisurely drinking wine and singing in the attic, but his singing was out of tune. Immortal Ping was still the only audience. After Wine Sword Immortal finished singing, she smiled and said, "Big brother Zhongli, Sword Immortal Nangong has spoken. Aren't you worried at all? This kind of thing can't be rushed. That Nangong guy has been fighting with me for 10,000 years. I didn't expect him to still be like this. Let him be in the limelight first," Wine Sword Immortal said with a smile. The next day, Wine Sword Immortal's lesson started again. Sword Immortal Nangong seemed to have purposely changed the time of the Dharma lesson to this day. According to the rules of becoming a disciple, after the young cultivators of the ancient Tao Source world passed the 3rd trial of the Heavenspan Mountain, if they wanted to become the disciple of a powerhouse, they had to be under that powerhouse's tutelage. Jiang Xi didn't know what Jiang Dudu had done, nor did he know that he was being targeted by so many Tribulation Transcender powerhouses. Early in the morning, he tied up his long hair that had not been cut for 10 years, tidied up his clothes, carried a long sword on his back and went out. Walking on the flagstone streets of 9 Firmament City, he headed toward the palaces of Tribulation Transcender powerhouses near 9 Firmaments Palace. He passed by the residences of tribulation transcender powerhouses one after another. Finally, he stopped in front of the Wine Sword Immortal's palace and walked in with steady steps. Sigh, the group of tribulation transcender powerhouses who still had a glimmer of hope sighed. But he lost wholeheartedly. Who asked him to be the Wine Sword Immortal? 50,000 years ago, the Wine Sword Immortal had dominated the 9 stellar regions of the Tao Alliance, and was known as the #1 immortal in terms of popularity. If it wasn't for an accident that led to the birth of a heart demon, he would have long become a great Tao immortal. After all, the sword Tao of the Liquor Sword Immortal was already on par with that of a Tao immortal 50,000 years ago. Only Sword Immortal Nangong remained silent for a long while before shaking his head with a smile. Being able to cultivate to such a high level, he naturally wouldn't get angry over such things. He just didn't want to lose to the Wine Sword Immortal. Here, because it was an open class, Zhang Xiai didn't have any restrictions and directly walked in. At this time, the Wine Sword Immortal was sitting at the front of the hall, and had yet to start his lecture. Seeing Zhang Xiai come in, his expression didn't change at all. But the other cultivators who came to listen to the lecture were in an uproar. Recently, Zhang Xi's name had been known by many cultivators in 9 Firmament City, below the immortal Tao realm. Many people had heard that this young man who had just arrived in the ancient Tao origin world had passed the 3rd trial of the sky-piercing mountain a few days ago, and his talent was extraordinary. Obviously, this was the first time Zhang Xiai had come to listen to a lecture, so his purpose here was self-evident. They were all guessing whether the Wine Sword Immortal would accept Zhang Xiai as his disciple under everyone's gazes. Zhang Xiai calmly found a place to sit down cross-legged and waited for the Wine Sword Immortal to teach him. After about 15 minutes, the Wine Sword Immortal drank a mouthful of wine and began his lecture. Today, let's talk about what is a sword. This sentence instantly stunned all the cultivators in the hall. Cultivators who could enter the ancient Tao origin world naturally had good talent and comprehension, and they all came here to listen to the lecture with swords as their weapon of choice. What was a sword? This question couldn't be more simple. Was there even a need to explain it? The Wine Sword Immortal didn't care about everyone's doubts and continued. I'm sure some people will say that a sword is a type of weapon, or a type of ceremonial tool or something else. Actually, that's not wrong. But the essence of a sword isn't mentioned. A sword isn't just an object. It's a life with sentience and emotions. If you use a sword to kill, your sword will be tainted with baleful aura and brutality. If you use a sword to do good, your sword will be tainted with righteousness and peace. Once the sword is tainted with these emotions, it will be like a person, possessing the 7 emotions and 6 desires. Many troubles in the world are caused by emotions. If we treat a sword as a life form, in the end we return to the essence. The sword is the heart. If you can reach this level, your sword Tao won't be too bad. Alright, this lecture ends here. All of you can leave now. See you next time. Everyone came back to their senses and realized that 3 days had already passed. They were completely immersed in the Wine Sword Immortal's words. Zhang Xiai was also immersed in the lecture. As expected of the Wine Sword Immortal, the theory of what was a sword enlightened him, and it deepened his understanding of the sword Tao. When everyone was about to leave, Zhang Xiai took a deep breath and walked to the front of the hall. Since he had already made his decision, he wouldn't hesitate. Under everyone's gaze, he knelt on the ground and said, "Disciple Zhang Xiai is willing to take immortal as my master." Zhang Xi's action caused another commotion. Everyone looked at the Wine Sword Immortal, wondering if this immortal would take Zhang Xiai as his disciple. Good, very good. The Wine Sword Immortal nodded lightly. All the cultivators were instantly filled with envy. The news of Zhang Xiai successfully becoming the Wine Sword Immortal's disciple quickly spread. The geniuses had just been stimulated once, and this time they were stimulated again. That was the Wine Sword Immortal, a 9th tribulation transcender who wasn't any weaker than a Tao immortal. This Zhang Xiai is really abnormal. Mu Ning muttered and continued to ponder over his next song. Granny once said that if the Wine Sword Immortal could reverse life and death, he would be a top-notch Tao immortal. If Zhang Xiai can become his disciple, his competitiveness will greatly increase in the future. Yin Jufeng took a deep breath. Why did he improve so quickly? Kuang Lang couldn't accept this news and was silent for a long time. The other geniuses were even crazier and worked hard to cultivate. However, it wasn't that easy to become the disciple of a tribulation transcender. They had to pass the third trial of the Skyspan Mountain. And it was even more difficult to become the disciple of a powerhouse like the Wine Sword Immortal. It really depended on their mood. Chapter 361. None of the geniuses were willing to fall behind, and they all cultivated diligently. Everyone knew that if they wanted to obtain more resources from the Purple Heaven sect in the future, they had to perform better than others at this time. The 11th to 20th years after entering the ancient Dao origin world were the highlight for Mu Ning and Yin Jiufeng. The two of them passed the third stage of the sky-piercing mountain. On the 21st year, Ji Wei broke through the fifth stage and took back the limelight. At the same time, Jiang Xi also confirmed a problem during this year. He had sworn an oath to his master, Daoist Gu, that he would return the Purple Heaven Sword Manual to the Purple Heaven sect within 100 years. This 100 years referred to the time he had experienced, and it was not the normal 100 years of the original universe. After the worry in his heart was resolved, Jiang Xi was completely relieved. In the next 21 to 30 years, Kuang Lang, Mo Hong, Bloodchild, Li Xianxian, Li Linger and Feng Lu all passed the third stage. While everyone was breaking through one after another, Riverward remained silent and did not make any movements. He did not challenge the Heavenspan Mountain even once. Although everyone was a little speechless, they were gradually getting used to Jiang Xi's style. In the blink of an eye, there was only a month left. The 30 years of cultivation in the ancient Dao origin world would end. Jiang Xi sat cross-legged on the stone bed in the stone house, seemingly immersed in cultivation. In reality, most of his attention was on his clone on the first moon of Earth. This state had been going on for almost a month. Suddenly, 3 types of Daos of heaven and earth appeared on Jiang Xi's body. The 3 types of Daos circulated in a mysterious way and gradually merged into one. After this process was completed, his aura suddenly increased by several times. Jiang Xi opened his eyes, and a smile appeared on his face. "I've finally succeeded." Then a trace of helplessness flashed through his eyes. As expected, according to Master, each Dao technique is a different path. The more Dao techniques one comprehends, the more paths one can walk at the same time. If one wants to comprehend new Dao techniques, the difficulty will increase tenfold. The master he was referring to was naturally the Wine Sword Immortal in Jiang Xi's opinion. He had deduced the Sword Dao in the first year after entering the ancient Dao origin world. The difficulty of deducing the path of Gale should be much lower. However, he never thought that the difficulty of the deduction was actually greater than the Sword Dao. In addition, the Gale path did not have an inheritance altar as a reference, so the deduction progress was even slower. Jiang Xi did not understand. The Gale Dao was a rare Dao technique. Its difficulty should be lower than other special Dao techniques. Later on, he became the disciple of the Wine Sword Immortal. It was only through this master that he learned that the Wine Sword Immortal had become a disciple of the Wine Sword Immortal. It turned out that it was as difficult as ascending to the heavens to reach a high level of attainment when cultivating multiple Taoist techniques. Especially when one's Dao technique realm was higher, the more difficult it would be to walk the path of multiple Dao techniques. Humans only had 2 legs. Walking 2 paths at the same time was already very difficult, let alone walking 3 or more paths at the same time. In the end, the Wine Sword Immortal also suggested that he focus on Sword Dao. Jiang Xi only listened to half of this suggestion. While focusing on the Sword Dao, he continued to deduce the Gale Dao. He couldn't just say, "I have the EXP panel. No matter how many paths there are, as long as I can step on them, I can walk through them, right?" Thus, he silently deduced, not caring about the success or failure of the other geniuses. Finally, he successfully deduced the Gale Dao a month ago. The third Dao of heaven and earth. It's indeed very difficult. The ancient Dao source world is like the birth of heaven and earth. The Dao of heaven and earth is not stable, so it's easier to cultivate Dao techniques compared to the original universe. But even in such an environment, it still took me so many years to deduce the Gale Dao successfully. If I were in the original universe, it would probably take me at least 100 years to deduce the third Gale Dao. Fortunately, his efforts were not wasted. When he used his clone to refine the spiritual fruit and push the Gale Dao to perfection, the Dao fusion technique underwent a change. Dao technique, Gale Dao 10th tier. 50,000,000/50,000,000. Secret technique. Dao fusion technique Sword Dao Fire Dao. Gale Dao 30,000,000/300,000,000. Amplitude 3. After the three Daos of heaven and earth have completely fused, my spiritual energy amplitude has tripled. If that's the case, my spiritual energy amplitude can reach a maximum of 6,000 times. I'll comprehend it carefully and prepare to challenge the Skyspan mountain. Before leaving the ancient Dao source world, I'll try to comprehend it one last time at the Azure Lotus altar. It was not only the improvement of his Dao technique. In the past 20 years, Zhang Xi had used up 3 chances at the inheritance altar. He had used the Azure Lotus altar to deduce and completely comprehended the second sword technique of the melody of 10,000 swords. His ability to use the sword Dao had greatly improved. Therefore, before leaving, he wanted to comprehend it one more time to further improve his use of the sword Dao. New Moon Era 225, November 11th. Original Universe Milky Way Galaxy, Planet Dongyuan Mountain Sea Star Trade Headquarters. This day was an important day for the Mountain Sea Star Trade. Yan Fei, a late-stage nascent soul disciple from the Purple Heaven Sect's First Heaven, carried out a complete inspection of the Mountain Sea Star Trade's assets under the witness of the Omniscient Eye. Congratulations, junior sister Jiang. The Mountain Sea Star Trade's assets have reached 100,000 supreme-grade spiritual crystals. According to the rules, the Purple Heaven Sect's business-type disciples can run a star trade group. If the assets reach 100,000 supreme-grade spiritual crystals, they can enter the Purple Heaven Sect's First Heaven to cultivate. Yan Fei first said this formally, then smiled and said, Junior Sister Jiang, I will submit the inspection results later. Then we will really be fellow disciples. Then I hope Senior Sister Yan can take care of me in the future. Zhang Daodu smiled. Junior Sister Jiang, you must be joking. With Senior Brother Jiang Xi's status in the sect, I hope you can help me in the future. Yan Fei shook her head. The news that Zhang Xi had become the disciple of the Wine Sword Immortal had already spread in the 9th heaven of the Purple Heaven sect. As for the disciples in the first 4 heavens, other than a few experienced and powerful disciples, the rest were all extremely envious. However, putting aside her relationship with Zhang Xi, Yan Fei also admired Zhang Daodu. She had thought that after the Mountain Sea Star Trade was merged into the Purple Heaven sect, she would borrow Zhang Xi's name. It would take Zhang Daodu about 1,000 years to operate the Mountain Sea Star Trade to 100,000 supreme-grade spiritual crystals. Unexpectedly, Zhang Daodu achieved this goal in less than 100 years. Even with the excellent quality of the Mountain Sea Star artifact as a foundation, the fact that Zhang Daodu was able to expand the Mountain Sea Star artifact to this extent in such a short period of time was a testament to her abilities. Junior Sister Jiang, when are you going to go to the Purple Heaven sect? Yan Fei asked again. There are still some things to deal with. Let's go in a month, Zhang Daodu said with a smile. Okay, I will wait for you for a month. Thank you. I will ask Yoshin to accompany you around the Milky Way galaxy. Although the two had only met a few times, they were like sisters who had not seen each other for many years and quickly became close. This was partly because Yan Fei deliberately made friends with her, and partly because Zhang Daodu had grown up for so many years and had already understood the ways of the world. After when Yoshin left with Yan Fei, Zhang Daodu stretched lazily as if a burden had been lifted from her shoulders, revealing her graceful figure. Chapter 362. Over 100 years had passed, and the bean sprout who used to roam the streets had become slender and elegant. However, in front of outsiders, Jiang Dudu had always remained aloof. Especially in the past few years when Zhang Xi wasn't around, she rarely smiled. Congratulations, Master. You've finally gotten what you wanted. Yin Tiansheng, who was the size of a thumb, appeared on Jiang Dudu's shoulder. It's still early. The first heaven and the third heaven of the Purple Heaven sect are 2 different worlds. Jiang Dudu's expression was calm. With Master's talent, it's only a matter of time before you enter the third heaven, Yin Tianxing said with a smile. Jiang Dudu smiled and asked, But you, my brother's master, died because of you. Are you afraid now that he's in the Purple Heaven sect? What's there to be afraid of? This old servant has a personal grudge with Taoist Gu. It's not a grudge between the human race and the ghost race. Besides, I'm only a remnant spirit now. I can't catch the attention of those immortal Tao experts. Yin Tianxing had a smile on his face, but his tone was bitter. Jiang Dudu didn't say anything else. She looked into the starry sky as if there was a world hidden in her eyes. Nine Heaven City, the teleportation platform from the original universe to the ancient Tao origin world. The gray-robed elder guarding this place suddenly opened his eyes. In the next moment, three figures appeared at the same time. Two of them were Immortal Liang and Immortal Chu He. The one in the lead was true monarch Iron Mountain in blood-red battle armor. When the gray-robed elder saw them clearly, he said in surprise, "Iron Mountain, you came personally? I happened to be free, so I brought those little guys back." True monarch Iron Mountain nodded lightly. "This year's youngsters are pretty good. You're really lucky," the gray-robed elder said with a smile. "Haha. It's my turn to be lucky." True monarch Iron Mountain laughed and said a few more words to the gray-robed elder before leaving with Immortal Liang and Immortal Chu He. The gray-robed elder looked at them and shook his head. That lucky guy. After cultivating in the ancient Tao origin world for 30 years, many of the youngsters in this year's 9 Regions Genius Tournament had shown signs of immortal potential. It could be said to be the strongest in 5 million years. True Lord Iron Mountain also had a mansion in 9 Firmament City. He brought Immortal Liang and Immortal Chuha to his palace. After taking their seats, True Lord Iron Mountain sat at the top of the hall and asked, "Liang, you know the situation of those young people the best. Tell me." Immortal Liang said respectfully, "Currently, Jiwei has passed the 5th stage of Mount Tongtian. Mu Ning, Yan Jufeng, Jiang Xi, and Kuang Lang are all at the 3rd stage. Mo Hong, Li Xianxian, Lin Linger, and Feng Lu are all in the 2nd stage. The others?" He recounted everyone's situation in detail. True Lord Iron Mountain nodded in satisfaction. Under normal circumstances, the young cultivators who participated in the 9 Zones Genius Tournament were all very strong. After cultivating in the ancient Tao origin world for 30 years, it would be considered not bad if 2 or 3 of them could pass the 3rd stage of the Skyspan Mountain. This time, not only did someone pass the 5th stage, there were even 4 people who passed the 3rd stage. If these geniuses were to transcend their tribulation and become immortals in the future, they would have a chance to become powerhouses among tribulation transcenders with a little bit of training. At that time, his Iron Mountain lineage's overall strength in the Tao Alliance's heavenly court would increase by a lot. In addition, Lord Iron Mountain also noticed a problem. He asked doubtfully, with some doubt, "I remember that 20 years ago, Jiang Xi passed the 3rd stage of the Skyspan Mountain and became the disciple of the Wine Sword Immortal, Zhongli. Why hasn't there been any change in the past 20 years? If it was in the original universe, it would be understandable if he hadn't made any progress in 20 years. But now, he had cultivated in the ancient Tao origin world for 20 years and hadn't made any progress at all. Moreover, the Wine Sword Immortal wasn't inferior to him. A Tao Immortal. With such an expert guiding his cultivation, it was reasonable to say that Jiang Xi should have made more progress. Immortal Liang and Immortal Chu He looked at each other and laughed. True Lord Jiang Xi's style is actually like this. In the 9 Zones Genius Tournament and the Skyspan Mountain 20 years ago, he's always been like this. He likes to hide his strength. He's well prepared. Immortal Liang pondered for a while before finding the right words. Then, he briefly described what Jiang Xi had done. True Lord Iron Mountain's interest was piqued. "Oh, then I'd like to see what he's been accumulating for the past 20 years. Then he asked Immortal Liang to send a message to everyone to meet him. Soon, the remaining 2,700 geniuses all arrived at True Lord Iron Mountain's palace. "Greetings, True Lord Iron Mountain." Everyone bowed in unison. True Lord Iron Mountain was expressionless as a powerful aura spread out. "I'm very disappointed. The ancient Tao origin world is the safest place on your path of cultivation, but almost 1,000 of you have died." The expressions of the geniuses changed under this powerful aura. Even the stronger geniuses like Jiang Xi and Jiwei found it difficult to breathe. Too powerful. Now there's still a month left. Those who are going to challenge the Skyspan Mountain, and those who haven't used the opportunity to comprehend the inheritance altar should use it quickly. It won't be so easy to come to the ancient Tao origin world in the future, True Lord Iron Mountain said. These two short sentences caused the geniuses to fall silent and quickly disperse. Some returned to the Skyspan Mountain and River diagram to challenge the Skyspan Mountain again. Some went to the Inheritance Altar to comprehend the ancient Tao origin world first before going to the Skyspan Mountain. Meanwhile, Zhang Xi returned to his stone house and continued to comprehend the changes after the three Taos of heaven and earth merged. He received a message from Immortal Ilyang before he had time to check it out, so he could only rush to True Lord Iron Mountain's place. After spending half a day to comprehend, Zhang Xi had a rough understanding of his new strength. After adding the Gale Tao, not only has my spiritual energy multiplied, but the Gale Tao also has the Wind Tao origin world. The Tao fusion technique has also gained some wind transformations, making it faster and sharper. In addition, I've completely comprehended the second sword art of the Melody of 10,000 Swords. My current strength should be able to improve greatly on the Skyspan Mountain, right? Zhang Xi smiled and took out his communication pearl, preparing to challenge the Skyspan Mountain. However, before he could enter the Skyspan Mountain and River diagram, he received a message on his communication pearl. Mu Ning just passed the fourth trial? Zhang Xi was slightly taken aback. Then his eyes narrowed. He's starting to show his strength? Since that's the case, let's go challenge the Skyspan Mountain now. Mu Ning's improvement also ignited Zhang Xi's fighting spirit. The Skyspan Mountain and River diagram, the continent where the 44 Skyspan Mountains were located. Zhang Xi had just entered when he discovered that over 1,000 people had already gathered here. They were all waiting in line to challenge the Skyspan Mountain. Hey Zhang Xi, Mu Ning just passed the fourth trial and you're already here. He'll definitely say that you're deliberately causing trouble for him, Yan Jufeng said with a smile. I can't let him be the only one in the limelight. Zhang Xi joked. Soon Mu Ning's figure flew down from the myriad Skyspan Mountain. He hadn't passed the fifth trial. Sure enough, when he saw Zhang Xi, he immediately shouted, Zhang Xi, you're deliberately causing trouble for me. Can't you come back a few days later? Zhang Xi and Yan Jufeng immediately burst into laughter. Chapter 363. Just as they were getting excited, whoosh! Another figure appeared. Everyone looked over. It was a young man with a strand of white hair on his forehead. It was Jiwei. He had also received the news that Mu Ning had passed the fourth level. However, Jiwei's gaze fell on Zhang Xi, and he took the initiative to ask a question. Zhang Xi, are you confident that you can pass the fifth level? Maybe. Zhang Xi nodded slightly. Jiwei fell silent again. At this moment, the voice of the mountain guardian sounded. The Green Lotus sky-piercing mountain is free. Those who want to challenge it, hurry up. Upon hearing this, Zhang Xi immediately flew out and went straight to the Green Lotus sky-piercing mountain. I want to see how many things this guy has hidden for 20 years. Mu Ning muttered. Although Jiwei was expressionless, the look in his eyes had clearly changed. The other geniuses also looked at Zhang Xi's figure and made guesses. After all, Zhang Xi had not challenged the sky-piercing mountain for 20 years. In the fourth level of the Green Lotus sky-piercing mountain, in the illusion, the gatekeeper, who was dressed in battle armor and carried a long sword on his back, actually revealed a rare smile when he saw Riverward. You haven't been here for a long time. Last time you suffered a crushing defeat. This time if you don't have a big breakthrough you won't be able to pass this level. Let's play one round first. Zhang Xi chuckled. He looked very calm on the surface, but his fighting spirit was rising. It was time to go all out. Whoosh! The slaughtering shadow sword was unsheathed, and sword light whistled like a blooming green lotus. Sword chi that blotted out the sky shot out. This time the sword chi was not only mixed with the dark redly fire sword shadow, but also the swiftness and fierceness of the wind. Suddenly sword chi filled the sky and swept through the entire space. Whoosh! The fusion of three Taos of heaven and earth. The gatekeeper was also shocked. Under normal circumstances, only those Tribulation Transcender and Tao Immortal powerhouses who had stagnated in their cultivation would think of taking the second or third path. It was very rare for cultivators who had not yet become immortals to take multiple paths and be able to complete the fusion of two Taos of heaven and earth as for someone like Zhang Xi. who had reached the level of the Tao of heaven and earth in all three paths, and was able to fuse them together to execute the Tao fusion technique. It was simply rare to see someone like him in a million years. It was common knowledge that the more Tao arts one cultivated, the harder it would be to cultivate in the future. However, the gatekeeper would not relax his attack just because he was shocked. He snorted coldly, and his soaring sword intent swept out. "You want to use this technique to get past me? Don't even think about it." Boom! Boom! The sword light surged, bursting with dazzling and blazing light. Terrifying cracks appeared in the space as the two of them exchanged blows. It was as if the space was about to collapse. However, in terms of absolute strength, the gatekeeper was still at a disadvantage. In this round, his Tao power was only equivalent to 4,600 times the spiritual energy amplitude. In comparison, Jiang Xi's spiritual energy amplitude could reach 6,000 times. On top of that, after mastering the second sword technique of the tune of 10,000 swords, his combat skills were no longer the same as before. Therefore, the gatekeeper was only able to block Jiang Xi's first wave of attacks. In the second round, he was cut down by the sword. Stage 4 passed. When the news spread, everyone's shock was not as strong as imagined, because Jiang Xi had already passed the third stage 20 years ago. If he could not even pass the fourth stage this time, it would be too ridiculous. Now, everyone was waiting to see if Jiang Xi could pass the fifth stage. If he could, it would really be heaven-defying. Because the first place of the 9 Regions Genius Tournament, Jiwei, was also at the fifth stage. The Void Universe Sky-Piercing Mountain is also empty. Those who want to challenge it, hurry up and go. The voice of the gatekeeper sounded. Everyone's eyes gathered on Jiwei. Jiwei was expressionless. He moved his feet lightly and flashed out. He would not let anyone shake his first place. This is great. The limelight has been stolen by these two. Mu Ning grabbed the bamboo flute and knocked on his straw hat. Half an hour later, the gatekeeper suddenly laughed. Jiang Xi has passed the fifth stage. Whoosh! The geniuses immediately became lively. This time everyone was really shocked. At the fifth stage of the sky-piercing mountain, Jiang Xi's talent and strength were fully deserving of the second place this time. Why was he not first? Because Jiwei had passed the fifth stage 10 years ago. Naturally, he was first. Just as everyone was discussing this matter, the gatekeeper's dignified face was filled with a smile. Jiwei has passed the sixth stage. The platform in front of the sky-piercing mountain was strangely quiet. The geniuses all fell into silence. The sixth stage. At this time there was only a deep pressure in everyone's heart. Jiang Xi and Jiwei were no longer on the same level as them. The other geniuses in the top 10 had their eyes flickering. They were greatly stimulated. Especially the other two Purple Heaven Sect fourth layer disciples, Yin Jiufeng and Kuang Lang. Yin Jiufeng was slightly better. She was lively by nature. She only smiled bitterly for a moment before her emotions returned to normal. Kuang Lang was originally a domineering person. With such a big gap between him and his competitors, he did not feel good. However, this time, Kuang Lang did not have a big emotional reaction. He was very calm. He had already accepted this reality. However, he would not give up. The road of cultivation was still long. He would catch up sooner or later. He would not give up. Next, the geniuses' challenges came to an end. Basically, everyone had passed the first stage. As for the top 360 geniuses, as long as they were still alive, they had passed the second stage. After that, only the top 10 geniuses had passed the third stage. The remaining geniuses, the fourth stage, Mu Ning. The fifth stage, Jiang Xi. The sixth stage, Jiwei. Inside True Monarch Iron Mountain's palace, the three immortals had also received the results of everyone's challenge. Congratulations, True Monarch. Immortal Yi Liang and Immortal Chu, he congratulated him in unison. True Monarch Iron Mountain, who had always been dignified, also let out a carefree laugh. It could be expected that Jiwei, Jiang Xi, and Mu Ning would all become powerhouses among tribulation transcenders in the future, as long as nothing unexpected happened. If they were lucky, they might even become great Tao immortals. If they became tribulation transcenders, they would naturally be his subordinates. If they became great Tao immortals, they would become true monarchs. They would be on the same level as him, and would not be inferior to him. However, at that time, their relationship would definitely be closer than that of other true monarchs. However, he still had some doubts in his heart. Ji Wei walks the path of time and space, and he has already stepped onto the Great Tao. Coupled with the fusion of time and space, it is reasonable for him to pass the 6th stage. Mu Ning is also at the Great Tao level, and he specializes in the Great Tao of life. He has walked further than Ji Wei's Great Tao. What is this Zhang Xi relying on? He has not stepped onto the Great Tao, but instead walked 3 Great Taos of heaven and earth at the same time. It is really rare. After thinking for a while, he shook his head. Weren't geniuses like this? It was beyond the expectations of ordinary people. 3 people, 3 different cultivation directions. At present, it seemed that Ji Wei was a little ahead. However, in the eyes of true monarch Iron Mountain, Zhang Xi was also a genius worth looking forward to. This was because Ji Wei had already revealed a talent that was rarely seen in a million years. In contrast, Zhang Xi's sudden breakthrough was a complete surprise. Chapter 364. After failing the 6th stage, Zhang Xi didn't continue trying and left the sky-piercing mountain river diagram. He cultivated in the stone house for 3 days. After the 3 battles in the sky-piercing mountain, he gained a lot of battle insights and needed to organize them. Only by summarizing and combining actual battle and theory could he improve faster. After doing all that, Zhang Xi went to the Azure Lotus altar and cultivated for 20 days, using up the 2 chances he just obtained. Because just like true monarch Iron Mountain said, if he didn't use it now, he didn't know when he would come to the ancient Tao source world again. Using the Azure Lotus altar, he used the Purple Firmament Sword Manual, Sword Tao, and Melody of 10,000 Swords to deduce together. Combined with the battle insights from the sky-piercing mountain, his use of the Sword Tao improved a lot after 20 days. Especially the 3rd sword technique of the Melody of 10,000 Swords, he already had a rough idea. Presumably, if he continued to deduce with the experience panel, he would soon be able to fully grasp it. The 3 sword techniques of the Melody of 10,000 Swords corresponded to the first 3 transformations of the Azure Lotus Sword Tao, 1 Azure Lotus, 4 Azure Lotus, and 100 Azure Lotus. Once he fully grasped the 3rd sword technique, his strength would definitely rise to another level. 9 Firmament City, Wine Sword Immortals Palace. Zhang Xi spent the last 10 days before leaving the ancient Tao source world. Listening to the teachings of his master, Wine Sword Immortal, was one thing. Another thing was that he didn't know when he would come to the ancient Tao source world again after leaving this time. So he naturally wanted to accompany his master. In Zhang Xi's heart, Taoist Gu and the Wine Sword Immortal, these 2 masters, had completely different styles. But they were both dedicated to their disciples and taught them everything. Before Taoist Gu died, he directly passed his inheritance memories to him. And the Wine Sword Immortal, in the 20 years after he became his master, carefully taught him about various aspects of cultivation. In the last 10 days, the Wine Sword Immortal even told him many things. He provided many constructive suggestions for his future development. Soon it was time to leave the ancient Tao source world. Master, I'm leaving. Zhang Xi knelt on the ground. As sword immortals, there's no need for us to go through such complicated formalities. We can just do as we please. Wine Sword Immortal laughed out loud riverward. On the other hand, bowed respectfully. Even though the Wine Sword Immortal had lived for nearly 100,000 years, his heart was inexplicably moved, because he had entrusted too many things to Zhang Xi. Zhang Xi, since we are parting, I have a request for you, the Wine Sword Immortal said seriously. Master, please speak. Wine Sword Immortal said. Live on. Zhang Xi was startled for a moment. He thought that the Wine Sword Immortal had some requirements for his cultivation. Unexpectedly, there were only 3 simple words. But from these 3 words, one could feel the Wine Sword Immortal's concern for him. This disciple will remember. Zhang Xi took a deep breath. Alright, you guys are about to gather. Hurry up and go. Wine Sword Immortal laughed. Zhang Xi nodded gently, then turned and left. In the empty hall, the Wine Sword Immortal stood there quietly. After a long time, he suddenly grabbed the wine gourd and drank a lot of wine. Immortal Ping walked out of the side hall and sighed. Big brother Zhongli, since you can't bear to part with him, you can apply to return to the sect to cultivate. This way, Jiangxi's path in the sect will be smoother. The Wine Sword Immortal shook his head and smiled. The growth of young people still needs more tempering. Don't worry, this little guy is smart and has hidden a lot of things. Jiangxi left with worry in his heart. Although the Wine Sword Immortal didn't reveal the problem of his lifespan to him, he had checked the information of the Wine Sword Immortal a long time ago. His master was a 9 Sword Immortal, who had lived for nearly 100,000 years. In other words, the Wine Sword Immortal's lifespan was about to come to an end unless he could break through and become a great Dao Immortal. I don't know what happened, but with Master's strength, he should have been able to become a great Dao Immortal. Jiangxi shook his head and hid his worry in the bottom of his heart. He still wasn't strong enough. It was very difficult for him to come into contact with the secrets of the Tribulation Transcender and Great Dao Immortal levels. 9 Heaven City, the teleportation platform from the original universe to the ancient Dao origin world. True Monarch Iron Mountain stood with his hands behind his back, while Immortal Yi Liang and Immortal Chu, he stood behind him. More than 2,700 geniuses were standing in an orderly manner. The cultivation in the ancient Dao origin world is over. There are only 3 people whose performance satisfied me the most: Jiwei, Jiangxi, and Mu Ning. True Monarch Iron Mountain's hoarse voice sounded. Instantly, the gazes of the geniuses gathered on the 3 people at the front. Everyone had complicated expressions. Some were disappointed, some were envious, some were jealous, but most of them were filled with fighting spirit. Jiwei, Jiangxi, and Mu Ning. In many people's eyes, Jiangxi was actually more monstrous than the other 2. This was because Jiangxi's growth was too fast. Jiwei and Mu Ning's talent and strength had already been displayed in the 9 Regions Genius Tournament. In comparison, although Jiangxi was in the top 10 at that time, he was clearly weaker than Jiwei and Mu Ning. Moreover, Jiangxi's master was only a Tribulation Transcender, while Jiwei and Mu Ning's masters were Dao Immortals. 30 years had passed, and Jiangxi had risen step by step. He had surpassed Mu Ning and was approaching Jiwei. In the future, how far could Jiangxi go on the road of cultivation? No one had a definite answer. However, no one dared to underestimate Jiangxi now. True Monarch Iron Mountain continued. The 30 years in the ancient Dao origin world was only the first stage of your cultivation in the Purple Heaven sect. Resources are earned by one's own efforts. I hope that after arriving at the Purple Heaven sect, you can continue to work hard and perform even better. Cultivation has no limits. How far you can go in the future is not only related to your talent, but also how much effort you can put in. Now, follow me back to the Purple Heaven sect. The geniuses became excited once again. As disciples of the Purple Heaven sect, they could finally cultivate in the Purple Heaven sect. Jiangxi had a deep look in his eyes. He had thought about more than the others. Strictly speaking, he was already a disciple of the Purple Heaven sect after he became Daoist Ji's disciple. Now, he really had to go to the Purple Heaven sect. Where would he go and what would he experience? His sharp intuition told him that Daoist Ji's mission was not that simple. The Dao Alliance's 3 gates and 6 sects, the Daoist Gate, the Buddhist Gate, and the Sword Gate, were detached from worldly affairs. The Purple Heaven sect was the true ruler of the entire Dao Alliance and the entire human race in the universe. After all, even the master of the Dao Alliance's heavenly court came from the Purple Heaven sect. One could imagine how powerful the Purple Heaven sect was. The Purple Heaven Sword Manual was named after the Purple Heaven sect. Its importance was self-evident. However, Daoist Gu, a Dao integration expert, had mastered one of the most important inheritances of the Purple Heaven sect. Was this a joke? Looks like I have to keep a low profile when I reach the Purple Heaven sect. I can only secretly look for opportunities. Jiangxi carried these doubts, caution, and worry in his heart as he followed the 3 immortals. First, they teleported back to the Dao Alliance Heavenly Court's Dao Origin Hall through the Universe Passage. Then, they teleported directly to the Purple Heaven sect's headquarters through the Southern Heavenly Gates teleportation platform. They had finally arrived. The geniuses were once again stunned by the scene before them. Chapter 365. As soon as the 2,700 geniuses appeared on the teleportation platform of the Purple Heaven sect, they were all stunned. The headquarters of the Purple Heaven sect was naturally not something that a peak immortal Tao sect could compare to. However, what they didn't expect was that this was also a continent in space. It was so vast that one couldn't see the end of it. In terms of scale, it was comparable to the Tao Alliance's Heavenly Court. The only difference was that the continent of the Tao Alliance's Heavenly Court had countless immortal mountains, immortal islands, and palaces. On the other hand, the Purple Heaven sect only had 9 enormous floating islands. They were layered upon layers, and they were surrounded by 5 colored clouds. It was like a paradise. Right now, the teleportation platform they were on seemed to be tens of thousands of square kilometers in size. However, compared to the 9 floating islands, it was nothing. While everyone was still in shock, True Monarch Iron Mountain said in a low voice, "Ilyang Chuha, take them to their respective heavens." Then, he disappeared from the teleportation platform. Immortal Ilyang and Immortal Chuha glanced at the youths who were looking around, then exchanged a glance and chuckled. Then, Immortal Ilyang said, "The continent below is slightly smaller than the Tao Alliance's Heavenly Court's Heavenly Court continent. The largest one has a diameter of 9 billion light-years. It is where the outer disciples of the Purple Heaven sect cultivate. These 9 enormous floating islands are the 9 great heavens. The first 4 heavens are where the core disciples cultivate. Each of them contains a major world. 9 billion light-years? That was a little too small." The geniuses were all flabbergasted. "Now the disciples of the first heavens will follow Immortal Chuha. The disciples of the second and third heavens will follow me." Immortal Ilyang chuckled. The 2,700 geniuses quickly split up according to their respective heavens. The first heavens were the most numerous, followed by the second heavens. The third and fourth heavens were only the top 10. Everyone would be teleported to the first 4 floating islands in the sky through the teleportation platform in batches. Immortal Chuha left with the first heavens, which had the most people. Then Immortal Ilyang left with the fourth heavens, Jiwei, Yin Jiufeng, and Kuang Leng. As for the several hundred second and third heavens geniuses, they had to wait for Immortal Ilyang's return because the heavenly layer world was very big. The 2 immortals had to send these geniuses to their respective caves one by one. Before leaving, Yan Jufeng waved at Mu Ning and Jiang Xi. "Mu Ning, Jiang Xi, don't forget to keep in touch." Although she was lively by nature, the only people she was close to were Mu Ning and Jiang Xi. Of course, Jiang Xi was incidental. Mu Ning tilted her head and waved her flute. Jiang Xi only smiled and nodded. He knew that the other party was targeting Mu Ning. "I wonder what the world of the third heaven is like?" Mu Ning asked curiously beside Jiang Xi. He was also a disciple of the third heaven. Just now, the immortal said that it's a great world, Jiang Xi said with a smile. In Taoist Ji's inherited memories, there was a simple description of the 9 heavens of Purple Heaven sect, but it was not detailed. Jiang Xi had no idea what was going on inside. Mu Ning kept making guesses, and Jiang Xi would add on occasionally. "No matter what the environment is inside, I'll definitely plant a willow tree in front of the door and dig a pond." Mu Ning calculated carefully. Jiang Xi smiled and was about to speak when he suddenly sensed something. He turned around abruptly and shuddered. "Brother." A familiar voice that seemed to penetrate deep into his soul reached Jiang Xi's ears. Jiang Dudu's graceful figure appeared on the other side of the teleportation platform. She, who had always maintained a cold demeanor in front of others, was now smiling like a blooming flower. Jiang Xi was instantly dumbfounded. The world seemed to have quieted down. The 2 of them only had eyes for each other. They had really been separated for a long time this time. Jiang Xi had been separated for 30 years, while Jiang Dudu had been separated for 108 years. Jiang Dudu's appearance also caused the other geniuses on the teleportation platform to become lively. Since the 2 immortals, Ilyang and Chu He, had temporarily left, they could finally relax. "Jiang Xi, you actually have a younger sister," Mu Ning exclaimed. "Why is your sister also a disciple of the Purple Firmament sect?" Emo Hong asked. "This is ridiculous. Your sister's talent is also so strong." The other geniuses who were on good terms with him all teased him. Jiang Xi smiled proudly and appeared in front of Jiang Dudu in a flash. "Are you surprised?" Jiang Dudu asked. "Yes, I'm happy." Jiang Xi nodded with a smile. But before he could say anything, 2 more figures appeared on the teleportation platform. the aura of an immortal Tao powerhouse suddenly spread out and enveloped the hundreds of geniuses in the second and third firmament. The powerful aura caused everyone's faces to turn pale as they resisted with all their might. It gave them the feeling that if they didn't resist, they would only be waiting for death. Jiang Xi also hurriedly spread out his spiritual power and Tao arts to protect himself and Jiang. At the same time, he was puzzled. What was this? Were they trying to intimidate them while Immortal Yi Liang and Immortal Chu He were not here? Were immortal Tao powerhouses that bored? One of the two figures could be seen. One was tall and the other short. The tall one was a middle-aged man with a stiff face and wore a purple Taoist robe. The short man had a strange face and held a compass in his hand. While the hundreds of geniuses were resisting with all their might, some were even at a loss. The short immortal with the compass glanced at the compass, then raised his head and pointed. It's him. He was pointing in the direction of Jiang Xi and Jiang. Jiang Xi's expression changed drastically. The stiff-faced immortal in the purple Taoist robe appeared in front of the two of them, as if he had teleported. You've learned the purple firmament Tao without permission. Die. He spoke in a tone as if he was passing judgment. He stood high above and grabbed at Jiang Xi. Jiang Xi wanted to move, but under the restraints of the immortal Tao powerhouse, he could not move at all. He could not even change his expression. However, at that moment, an undetectable cold light flashed across Jiang's body. She broke free of the restraints and stood in front of Jiang Xi. Don't you dare hurt my brother. Jiang Xi's eyes were filled with anxiety and despair. He wanted Jiang to dodge. His heart was filled with bitterness. He was really going to die this time. Stop! Suddenly a loud shout rang out. Another middle-aged woman appeared on the teleportation platform. She had an ordinary face, but there was a galaxy of stars in her eyes. Humph! The stiff-faced immortal snorted coldly and continued to grab at Jiang Xi. The female immortal wanted to stop him, but she was too slow. At that critical moment, Immortal Yi Liang appeared on the teleportation platform. He had just returned after sending off Ji Wei, Yan Zhufeng, and Kuang Lang. How dare you! Immortal Yi Liang was enraged when he saw this. He slammed his palm down. The tall and short immortals did not dare to be careless. They immediately raised their hands to block. The female immortal took advantage of this opportunity to appear in front of Jiang Xi and protect Jiang Xi and Jiang. Chapter 366. Ancient Tao Origin World, Nine Heavens City, Wine Sword Immortal's Palace. Wine Sword Immortal held his communication bead, and his expression changed. Immortal Ping asked, "What's wrong?" Something happened to Jiang Xi. He just went to Purple Heaven sect. What could have happened? Immortal Ping was even more confused. I'll explain to you when I come back. I'm going to meet Tao Lord Nine Heavens now and ask for his decree. Wine Sword Immortal's expression was solemn, and he no longer had his usual carefree attitude as he flew out of the palace. Immortal Ping was shocked by Wine Sword Immortal's words. What could alarm Tao Lord Nine Heavens? Wu Yi, why did you attack a new disciple? Immortal Yi Liang asked with a cold expression. The Purple Heaven Sword Manual. Immortal Wu Yi only said 2 words. You mean? Immortal Yi Liang's expression changed greatly. The remaining 300 or so geniuses on the Purple Heaven sect's teleportation platform were still in shock. They were somewhat confused when they heard the conversation between Immortal Yi Liang and Immortal Wu Yi. The Purple Heaven Sword Manual? What did it have to do with Jiang Xi? The Purple Heaven Sword Manual has been lost for nearly 10,000 years. Why are you so sure that it's with Jiang Xi? Immortal Yi Liang was clearly shocked. 130 years ago, Yu Chong found out through Gu Ming's inheritance that the Purple Heaven Sword Manual was with this batch of geniuses. He confirmed it again just now, and it's with this disciple. Immortal Wu Yi explained. After all, he was only a 6th tribulation transcender, while Yi Liang was a 9th tribulation transcender. Immortal Yi Liang's expression changed. The Yu Chong that Wu Yi mentioned was the short immortal. This person's Tao of divination had advanced to the great Tao of karma 1,000 years ago. The result of his divination would naturally not be wrong. Furthermore, Wu Yi had said it in such detail. 130 years ago. That meant that the Purple Heaven Sword manual was really with Zhang Xiai. Zhang Xiai held Zhang Daodu's hand tightly and stood expressionlessly behind the female immortal. He did not express the anger, worry, or doubt in his heart. The two of them had almost died just now. Although Immortal Yi Liang had returned and this unknown female immortal was protecting him, the sense of danger in his heart did not decrease. At the same time, he was also very doubtful. 130 years ago? Wasn't that the time when he first left Earth and went to the Blue Planet? Of course, this was not a problem that needed to be considered at the moment. More importantly, where would he go from here? Why did his cheap master, Daoist Gu, leave him with such a huge trap? Just as Zhang Xi's emotions were extremely complicated, Immortal Yi Liang solemnly said, Zhang Xiai is a disciple of the third heavenly layer. A tribulation transcender has no right to punish him. Although the Purple Cloud Sword scripture was more important than Zhang Xiai, he wanted to save Zhang Xi's life. Zhang Xiai had passed the 5th stage of the sky-piercing mountain after cultivating in the ancient Tao origin world for 30 years. With such talent, there was a high chance that he would become a tribulation transcender powerhouse in the sect, or even a Tao immortal powerhouse. Of course I know this, so I requested True Monarch Yan Yu's decree. A bright yellow scroll appeared in Immortal Wu Ye's hand. The aura of a Tao immortal perfected lord spread out instantly. Immortal Yi Liang and the female immortal's expressions turned ugly. True Monarch Yan Yu was Immortal Wu Ye's master. This was also the reason why Wu Yi, a 6th tribulation transcender, dared to speak like this in front of him. If it was an ordinary 6th tribulation transcender, he would have already slapped him. Immortal Yi Liang suppressed the anger in his heart and said again, True Monarch Iron Mountain thinks highly of Zhang Xia. True Monarch Yan Yu's decree is here. Do you dare to disobey? Immortal Wu Yi was not afraid at all. Immortal Yi Liang angrily said, I will definitely report this matter to True Monarch Iron Mountain. Do as you wish. Immortal Wu Ye's face stiffened as he coldly smiled and locked his gaze on Zhang Xiai. Humph. But at this time True Monarch Iron Mountain appeared out of thin air. There was a hint of anger on his dignified face. You dare to touch my people? Immortal Wu Yi bowed in a manner that was neither servile nor overbearing. Greetings, True Monarch Iron Mountain. I only want to inherit the sect's legacy, and I dare not offend you. True Monarch Iron Mountain ignored him and looked at Zhang Xiai, asking, You have the Purple Cloud Sword scripture. Zhang Xiai nodded. That's right. There was nothing to hide now. Since they had come knocking on his door, there was no point in hiding it. True Monarch Iron Mountain was silent for a moment before saying in a deep voice, I support Zhang Xiai in cultivating the Purple Cloud Sword scripture. Iron Mountain, your support is useless. Before he entered the Purple Cloud sect, he already cultivated the Purple Cloud Sword scripture. This is a violation of the sect's ban. According to the order, his soul should be searched before he is killed. At this time, a young man with a pale face appeared in front of everyone and said with a chuckle. It was obvious that he was True Monarch Yan Yu. I have already taken Daoist Gu as my master. Before I started cultivating, I was already a disciple of the Purple Cloud sect. Zhang Xiai did not continue to remain silent. If he did not struggle, he would really be gone. At this time, the female immortal also spoke. True Monarch Yan Yu, True Monarch Iron Mountain. Gu Ming's disciples are qualified to cultivate the Purple Cloud Sword scripture, right? Yes. True Monarch Iron Mountain said in a deep voice. No. Although Gu Ming has the strength of a tribulation transcender, he has yet to become an immortal. His disciples are naturally not considered disciples of the Purple Cloud sect. True Monarch Yan Yu shook his head. Two true monarchs confronted each other. Even in the Purple Cloud sect, such a scene had not appeared for many years. In the absence of Tao monarchs, the daily operations of the Purple Cloud sect were naturally decided by these true monarchs. However, True Monarch Yan Yu's status was obviously higher than True Monarch Iron Mountain's. True Monarch Yan Yu smiled and said, Wu Yi, search his soul and then kill him. Remember, not even his remnant soul can be left behind. How dare you? True Monarch Iron Mountain shouted angrily. Suddenly the world shook. The auras of the two true monarchs rose and instantly covered the starry sky. The stars in the sky seemed to tremble. Two huge figures appeared in the starry sky at the same time and were about to attack. On the other side, Immortal Yiliang and the female immortal were confronting Immortal Wu Yi and Immortal Yu Chong. Immortal Wu Yi held True Monarch Yan Yu's scroll and used its powerful aura to suppress Immortal Yiliang. He suppressed the stronger Immortal Yiliang and quickly approached riverward at this moment. Jiang Xi was surprisingly calm. He grabbed Zhang Daodu's hand and looked at her. Zhang Daodu also smiled. It was as if the two of them were the only ones left in the world. At this moment, the starry sky suddenly changed. A purple scroll appeared in the starry sky, covering the sky and suppressing everything. Even the stars lost their light. The huge Dao shadows formed by the two true monarchs suddenly burst like bubbles. In the dark starry sky, only two words were left. Quasi-cultivator. It was as if these two words were meant to appear in this starry sky. True Monarch Iron Mountain and True Monarch Yin Yu, who were about to attack, immediately bowed. Yes, Dao Monarch. The purple scroll hid in the starry sky again. True Monarch Yin Yu's face darkened. He snorted and disappeared with Immortal Wu Yi and Immortal Yu Chong. As for True Monarch Iron Mountain, he heaved a sigh of relief. In terms of strength and means, he was indeed inferior to True Monarch Yin Yu, who had lived longer. Oh. Chapter 367. Everything that had happened on the Purple Heaven Sex teleportation platform in just 3 minutes was something rarely seen in tens of millions of years. Tribulation Transcender, Perfected Lord, and Dao Lord, three immortal Dao experts had appeared one after another. All the nascent soul geniuses had already held their breaths, and no one dared to move. It was too terrifying. The geniuses were shocked, and their gazes were focused on Jiang Xi. Because all this had happened because of Jiang Xi. Everyone couldn't help but wonder, who exactly was Jiang Xi? What was the Purple Heaven Sword Manual? True Monarch Iron Mountain didn't want to answer their questions. He said with a serious face, Yiliang, take the rest of the kids and leave. Jiang Xi, stay. Immortal Yiliang nodded and didn't send them off in batches. Instead, he took the remaining second heaven and third heaven disciples and left together. Before leaving, Mu Ning looked at Jiang Xi worriedly. But in the current situation, he obviously didn't have the right to speak. What had just happened made the geniuses understand one thing: they were still too weak. After Immortal Yiliang left with the others, only True Monarch Iron Mountain, that unknown female immortal Jiang Xi, and Zhang Daodu were left on the teleportation platform. The ordinary-looking female immortal bowed and said, Lord Iron Mountain, leave the rest to me. True Monarch Iron Mountain nodded and said, all right, you're the most suitable person for this matter. Also send Jiang Xi to the third heaven. I'll have Yiliang send you the specific location. Then he said to Jiang Xi, don't worry and cultivate. Since the Dao Lord has already issued a decree, no one will dare to mention this matter again. Jiang Xi said respectfully, thank you, Lord Iron Mountain. I still have one more thing to ask of you. What is it? True Monarch Iron Mountain's mood was obviously a lot better. Jiang Xi asked, this is my Dao partner. Can she enter the third heaven to cultivate with me? Zhang Daodu blushed and didn't say anything. The female immortal of unknown identity, however, chuckled. True Monarch Iron Mountain said, according to the sex rules, since you're Dao partners, of course you can be together. Just apply to the sect later. Thank you, Lord. Jiang Xi hurriedly bowed. True Monarch Iron Mountain nodded and disappeared riverward, breathed a sigh of relief. According to the rules of the Purple Heaven sect, only Dao companions could cultivate together. That was why he had made this request. And this request was a last-minute decision. After the near-death experience just now, he had thought through many things. Some things couldn't be avoided or the other. If not for the timely appearance of this female immortal, Immortal Wu Ye's actions would have been slightly slower. He wouldn't have been able to hold on until Immortal Yiliang, True Monarch Iron Mountain, and even the Dao Lord's decree arrived. Unexpectedly, the ordinary-looking female immortal smiled. The disciples of the sect all call me Granny Yan, but you should call me Master's wife. Jiang Xi was stunned. Master's wife? Could she be the Dao partner of his cheap master Daoist Gu? Daoist Gu didn't mention this in his inherited memories. On the contrary, Zhang Daodu's reaction was a bit faster as she tugged at him. The two of them hurriedly shouted, "Greetings, Master's wife." Granny Yin smiled and nodded. She said to Jiang Xi, "I know you have a lot of questions. Let's talk as we walk. Let's go to the third heaven first." Then, she activated the teleportation and the three of them disappeared from the teleportation platform. Space changed and when they reappeared, they were already in another world. The third heaven of the Purple Heaven sect. This was also the vast starry sky, but the environment was obviously more complicated. Looking around, there were all kinds of planets, meteorites, and starry sky continents. Jiang Xi and Zhang Daodu looked around. At this moment, the three of them were on a small starry sky continent. Their surroundings were empty. There were no other buildings except for a teleportation array under their feet. Granny Yin smiled and introduced. The first four heavens of the Purple Heaven sect are the cultivation residences of the core disciples. The first heaven has the most disciples. There are more than 1,000,000 disciples, including 1,000,000 nascent soul cultivators, 10,000 essence soul cultivators, and 10,000 Dao integration cultivators. The second heaven has a lot fewer disciples. There are a total of 12,000 disciples, 10,000 nascent soul cultivators, 1,000 essence soul cultivators, and 1,000 Dao integration cultivators. The third heaven has even fewer disciples. There are only 1,200 disciples, 1,000 nascent soul cultivators, 100 essence soul cultivators, and 100 Dao integration cultivators. The fourth heaven has the least disciples. There are only 120 disciples, 100 nascent soul cultivators, 10 essence soul cultivators, and 10 Dao integration cultivators. These words caused Jiang Xi and Zhang Daodu to be incomparably shocked. There were so few people living in such a big world? Mistress, how big are the third heaven? Jiang Xi asked. The largest diameter is 10 million light years. If you want to live here in the future, you'll need a teleportation array and a flying boat when you travel, Granny Yin said with a smile. 10 million light years. Jiang Xi and Zhang Daodu looked at each other. Liang has already sent me a message. This starry sky continent is where your cave abode is. However, you'll have to build everything yourself. I'll give you the teleportation mark to enter and exit the third heaven later, Granny Yin said. He was the only one living in the entire starry sky continent? No, there were two people living in it now. How big was this starry sky continent? At least Jiang Xi couldn't see the end of it when he spread out his spirit consciousness. 1,000 kilometers? You can explore everything here later. If you have any doubts now, just ask, Granny Yin said seriously. Riverward thought for a moment and said, I have a total of 3 questions. First, which Dao Lord was the one who issued the Dao Lord's decree? It's Dao Lord 9 Firmaments, the guardian of the ancient Dao origin world. I don't know how I attracted his attention. Granny Yin was also puzzled. Dao Lord 9 Firmaments. Jiang Xi was even more puzzled. Did this peak expert notice me when I was cultivating in the ancient Dao origin world? Unfortunately, there was no definite answer. The only thing he could confirm was that there was a lot going on here. He continued to ask, second question, Master is only a Dao integration cultivator. How did he become Dao companions with Masteress? Zhang Daodu pinched him. How could he ask such a question? Granny Yin didn't mind and chuckled. Your Master Guming isn't as simple as you think. He was a fourth heaven disciple when he was alive. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been qualified to fight for the Violet Firmament Sword Manual. This time Jiang Xi was really shocked, a fourth heaven disciple of the Dao integration stage. Granny Yin had just said that there were only 10 Dao integration stage disciples in the fourth heaven. He didn't think Daoist Gu was so powerful before. A fourth heaven disciple of the Dao integration stage could be regarded as a tribulation transcender. Their status was even higher than most tribulation transcenders. Jiang Xi took a deep breath. This cheap master of his really knew how to trick people. He asked again, last question. What secrets does the Violet Firmament Sword Manual hide? This was the most important question. Chapter 368. In the universe, 36 million years is an era. The time that my Purple Heaven sect has existed is already immeasurable. It should be counted in tens of thousands of eras. Have you heard that the patriarch of the Purple Heaven sect was once the strongest person in the Dao Alliance? Granny Yen spoke tirelessly and suddenly asked a question. Jiang Xi nodded. I've heard of it. Since it was in the past, did someone surpass the patriarch in strength or? I don't know about these secrets. I only know that the patriarch has disappeared for countless eras. Disappeared. That's right. The Purple Heaven Sword scripture is the patriarch's legacy. Why is such an important legacy only with Master? This was a key question that had troubled Jiang Xi for a long time. Granny Yan's expression turned serious. Because it involves a taboo. Only one person can know and cultivate the Purple Heaven Sword scripture. Unless the inheritor becomes a Tao Lord or dies, the second person can cultivate it. One person knows and one person cultivates. But Master died more than 6,000 years ago. The others in the sect should have been able to cultivate it long ago, right? Jiang Xi was surprised but still confused. You don't fully understand the meaning of one person knows. The Purple Heaven Sword scripture exists in the inheritor's mind in the form of an inheritance mark. Without an inheritance mark, even if you know the contents of the scripture, you can't cultivate it. Granny Yen shook her head. Then if the inheritor dies outside, won't the legacy be lost? Zhang Daodu couldn't help but ask curiously. Jiang Xi's expression changed. The Purple Heaven Sword scripture had been passed down for countless eras. Master Daoist Gu definitely wasn't the only inheritor who died. The Purple Heaven sect must have done something. Otherwise, the Purple Heaven Sword scripture would have been lost long ago. Of course, the things left behind by the ancestral patriarch aren't that simple. When the inheritor dies, no matter where in the universe they are, the ancestral patriarch will always be there. Even if it's in the ghost race's star zone or the demon race's star zone, the inheritance mark will return to the sect and choose a new inheritor. 10,000 years ago, Gu Ming, the previous inheritor of the Purple Heaven Sword scripture, died in the alien battlefield. After the inheritance mark returns to the sect, a new inheritor needs to be chosen. Among the disciples in the sect, only 2 level 4 disciples were left, Gu Ming and Wu Yi. After a round of qualification selection in the end, Gu Ming won and became the inheritor, while Wu Yi lost and became the alternate inheritor. But so what if we win? Speaking of this, Granny Yan's face was filled with grief. Even if Gu Ming won, he was already dead. His competitor, Wu Yi, had become a 6th tribulation transcender after 10,000 years of cultivation. My condolences, mistress. Jiang Xi also sighed. Life was the most important thing. Once a person died, there would be nothing left. At the same time, he also understood. It was no wonder that immortal Wu Yi would attack him without mercy. Since Daoist Gu was dead, Wu Yi, the candidate for the successor, naturally became the next successor of the Purple Cloud Sword Manual. But now the Purple Cloud Sword scripture was with him. Only his death could break the taboo of one person knowing another person's cultivation. Granny Yen reorganized her emotions and said in a low voice, the accident happened more than 6,000 years ago after Gu Ming's life slip shattered. The elder in charge of the sect's inheritance found that the inheritance imprint of the Purple Cloud Sword Manual had not returned to the Purple Cloud sect. Jiang Xi and Zhang Daodu looked at each other. Both of them had the same thought. Could it be because of Earth? Granny Yen continued, this accident, which had never happened before in countless eras, shocked the experts of the sect. They mobilized all kinds of forces to find Gu Ming's traces. Karmic divination, heaven and earth tracking, bloodline tracking. They used countless methods but they did not succeed. My Yen family's ancestor was a perfected lord expert who was best at karmic divination. In order to divine this matter, he violated some kind of taboo, and his Tao was damaged. He had no choice but to go into seclusion to suppress the damage. Granny Yan's mood was very low. Obviously, Gu Ming's death had brought her great pain. Even after more than 6,000 years, she still could not forget. Jiang Xi sighed again. When the Azure Mystic sect accidentally found Earth, he received a piece of information. The experts of the Purple Cloud sect who were good at divination had once calculated that Daoist Gu might have died near the asteroid belt in the Milky Way, but they could not find him. In the end, it turned out that this expert was Granny Yan's ancestor. And the taboo that this person violated was most likely related to Earth. Then why did Master's remnant spirit make me swear that I would send the Purple Cloud Sword scripture back to the sect within 100 years? Jiang Xi asked again. Within 100 years? Granny Yin was startled. Then she said softly, if Guming was still alive, he would have lived for 10,000 years in another 50 years. Maybe he was worried that after his life was over, and you didn't cultivate the purple cloud sword scripture, the inheritance mark would disappear. If you could send it back to the sect within 100 years, you could choose a new inheritor. Jiang Xi nodded. This was very likely. This made sense. However, what Taoist Gu did not expect was that he had the experience panel, so there was no problem of whether he could cultivate it or not. He just had to memorize it a few times. And what happened to the one family on planet Morong, do you know about it? Jiang Xi's expression became serious again. Of course I do. When Yin and I are old friends, but when the one family had an accident back then, I was held back by Wu Yi and couldn't help them. Besides, Wu Ye's master, perfected cultivator Yen Yu, was quite powerful in the sect, so I could only let it go. Granny Yan's voice was hoarse and there was helplessness and anger in her tone. Jiang Xi was silent. There were conflicts everywhere. Granny Yan's perfected cultivator ancestor was in seclusion, so her position in the sect was naturally inferior to Wu Ye's perfected cultivator Yen Yu. Since you asked about the one family on planet Morong, you should have been there when the Qianyang Grotto heaven on planet Morong was unsealed 130 years ago. Right? Granny Yin suddenly asked. Jiang Xi nodded and admitted. At that time, Taoist Changbai of the Purple Cloud sect sealed planet Morong, and wanted to search the souls of all cultivators above the Golden Core level. However, the sect master of the Four Symbols sect, Ishan, said that he could leave planet Morong if he swore an oath. There were many suspicious points in this. No wonder the Yin family's perfected cultivator ancestor left me a message before he went into seclusion. He asked me to ask the sect master of the Four Symbols sect on planet Minglan to do something on planet Morong that year. It seems like the ancestor already knew something. Granny Yin was enlightened. Jiang Xi's heart skipped a beat. This perfected cultivator who cultivated the Karma Great Tao was too sick. He divined what happened on planet Morong more than 6,000 years ago. Granny Yin seemed to have seen through Jiang Xi's thoughts and said seriously, it seems like you have many secrets as well, so I won't ask about the rest. Remember, no matter who asks you anything in the future, say that you don't know. Even the details of the inheritance mark that Gu Ming gave you cannot be revealed to anyone. With Tao Lord Nine Clouds' Dharma will, no one will dare to do anything overboard to you. At this point, she paused for a moment before continuing. The last 3 sentences are also what my Yin family's ancestor wanted me to tell you. Jiang Xi was shocked and tried his best to remain calm. Could it be that the Yin family's perfected cultivator ancestor had already divined his existence more than 6,000 years ago? Chapter 369. The 5th heavenly layer of the Purple Heaven sect was where the Purple Heaven sect's tribulation transcender powerhouses resided. On a planet filled with dense spiritual energy, immortal Wu Yi returned to his cave abode with a gloomy face. Tao Lord Nine Firmaments, a transcendent peak expert, would actually pay attention to such a trivial matter? Why? That nascent soul stage girl is also strange. She was able to break free from my restraints with just her nascent soul stage cultivation. He didn't understand and shook his head helplessly. If we don't figure out why Tao Lord Nina Firmaments issued this decree, we can't make a move. Neither of them can make a move. The Violet Firmament Sword Sutra. For now, I won't be able to acquire it. It's my only hope of becoming a Tao Lord. How hateful. Immortal Wu Ye's heart was filled with rage, but he had nowhere to vent it. As the candidate inheritor of the Purple Cloud Sword Sutra, he naturally knew some of its secrets. If ordinary cultivators wished to become Tao Lords, they would be able to do so. One needed to cultivate the Tao of Heaven and Earth, walk on the Great Tao of Heaven and Earth, and then walk on the Heavenly Tao. Only after walking through the Heavenly Tao could one become a Tao Lord. Every process was as difficult as ascending to the heavens. In the entire universe, countless living beings were groping their way forward. Even now, there weren't many living beings who could truly complete this path. As for the Violet Firmament Sword Sutra, it was the only legacy which had allowed one to train to the Tao Lord level. This was a path that had already been decided. As long as he continued down this path, he would have a chance of becoming a Tao Lord. Although the chances were very, very small, it was still better than fumbling around and walking. the chances of success were much higher. Tao Lord. Tao Lord. I'll definitely become a Tao Lord. Immortal Witch Shine was originally someone with outstanding talent. He quickly pushed this matter to the bottom of his heart, adjusted his emotions, and continued to cultivate. However, it was impossible for him to give up the Violet Firmament Sword scripture just like that. Under normal circumstances, in order to ensure the stability of the inheritance, the inheritor of the Purple Cloud Sword Sutra would at least be at the Tao integration stage. In Wu Ye's opinion, a nascent soul stage brat could only be considered to have just stepped onto the path of cultivation. The chances of him dying in the future were too high. As long as Zhang Xi met with a little accident on his future path of cultivation, then his chance would come. The third heaven of the Purple Heaven sect. Even after Granny Yen left this starry sky continent, Zhang Xi's heart was still filled with anxiety. The immortal Tao was treacherous. Those who cultivated the great Tao of karma could not be judged with common sense. 6,000 years ago, Earth was still in the New Stone Age. And at that time, the Yen family patriarch had already divined his existence. Zhang Xi sat cross-legged and pondered for a long time before he recovered his composure. Then he smiled bitterly and shook his head. Before he left the ancient Tao origin world, he was still thinking that he should keep a low profile after he entered the Violet Heaven sect. Then, he would secretly find a suitable opportunity to hand over the Purple Firmament Sword scripture to the sect. However, he did not expect that he could not keep a low profile at all. Since even the Tao Lord had issued a decree for him, it was likely that the entire sect knew of his existence. Fortunately, his master Taoist Gu had given him a commission, and there was finally a result. Although he was still the one who cultivated the Purple Firmament Sword Sutra in the end, Tao Lord 9 Firmament had personally appointed him. Of course, it was considered a gift to the Purple Firmament sect. Jiang Dudu was worried as she watched Zhang Xi's expression change. Zhang Xi let out a long sigh and smiled. I'm fine. Did they discover something? Jiang Dudu asked. The Yen family's ancestor might have found something, but the others probably haven't. We're still too weak. The two of them tacitly did not mention the word Earth. Alright, let's not talk about this anymore. Now, you should tell me how you came to the Purple Firmament sect. Zhang Xi did not want Jiang Dudu to worry, so he changed the topic. Jiang Dudu smiled and told him everything that had happened in the past 108 years. In fact, it was mainly about the development of the Mountain Sea Star trade. It sounded simple, but Zhang Xi could feel the hardships that Jiang Dudu had put in. Interstellar trade was not like the business environment on Earth. There were too many uncertainties. Galactic pirates, frequent galactic disasters, changes in the starry sky environment, and so on were all important factors that affected the development of an interstellar trade group. Under such circumstances, the Mountain Sea Star trade had only taken 100 years to develop from 1 billion low-grade spirit crystals to 100 billion low-grade spirit crystals today. It had increased by 100 times. Even the interstellar trade groups under the top immortal Tao sects could not guarantee that they could achieve this. It could be seen that Jiang Dudu had really experienced a lot over the years. Zhang Xi took a deep breath and hugged Jiang Dudu, who was still talking about something. Zhang Daodu's words were interrupted, but she smiled happily. They hugged each other, and everything was understood without words. You said it. We'll be Tao companions in the future. You can't go back on your word. You're a dog if you go back on your word. Pinky swear. Didn't we pinky swear before? Let's do it again. Their laughter reverberated in the air. After that, they spent some time investigating the Starry Sky continent. The largest diameter of this continent was more than 10,000 kilometers, and the narrowest place was more than 5,000 kilometers. It was very luxurious for only 2 people to live in such a large area. Moreover, they found a spirit spring here. This was because the concentration of spirit chi in the level 3 world was much higher than that of the outside world. Therefore, Zhang Xi and Jiang Dudu decided to build a palace next to this spirit spring. With their strength, the speed at which they built the house was very fast. A beautiful palace quickly took shape. In the end, Jiang Dudu named this starry sky continent Daodu Continent, and the palace was naturally Daodu Palace. Both of them knew their priorities. After building the house and doing some indescribable things, they began to cultivate. After all, cultivating was the most important thing now. Everything that happened on the teleportation platform of the Purple Heaven sect made Jiang Xi see a lot of things clearly. Even a level 3 disciple was insignificant in front of the upper echelons of the Purple Heaven sect. Only by becoming stronger would one have the right to speak. Just like Tao Lord Nine Clouds, a decree could suppress everything. One had to persist in one's dreams, but in the end, one still had to carry it out with one's feet on the ground. Jiang Xi sat cross-legged next to the spirit spring of the Tao Du continent and secretly opened the experience panel. Cultivation True Body Nascent Soul Advanced Stage 1. 06 million/1. 06 million. Clone Nascent Soul Advanced Stage 1. 06 million/1. 06 million. Doubt Sword Tao Level 10 million/100 0000000. Li Fire Tao Level 10 million/50 0000000. Gale Tao Level 10 million/50 0000000. Amplitude 2000 times. Sword Tao Secret Techniques Tao Fusion Technique Sword Tao Li Fire Tao Gale Tao 30 0000000/300 0000000. Amplitude 3. Cultivation Techniques Purple Heaven Sword Manual Peacock Visualization Melody of 10,000 Swords Deduction 10,000 Experience Points per time Experience Points 100 0000000/985 440 000. In the past 30 years in the ancient Tao source world, not only have my Tao techniques and secret techniques improved, but my experience points have also exceeded 10 billion. Jiang Xi smiled. Of course, the experience points he obtained in the ancient Tao source world were more than that. However, more than half of them were used to deduce, and these were the last. Chapter 370. Jiang Xi calculated carefully in his heart. My clone is still refining his spiritual sense. It will probably take a long time before it's done. If I want to improve my strength, I'll have to rely on my Tao techniques. As long as any one of the three Taos of heaven and earth breaks through to the next level, my strength will improve. Next, I'll continue to deduce. However, after a day of deduction, he started to worry, because the efficiency of deduction was too low. It was tens of times slower than in the ancient Tao source world. In the ancient Tao source world, deduction would consume millions of experience points, and there would be slight changes in the Tao techniques. But now, deduction would consume tens of millions of experience points, and there would only be changes. Jiang Xi was naturally aware of the reason. Compared to the original universe, the Tao techniques in the ancient Tao source world were unstable and easier to comprehend. Therefore, his deduction efficiency would be higher there. The tune of 10,000 swords deduction effect on Sword Tao is also not that obvious. Jiang Xi shook his head again. This was because he was about to fully grasp the tune of 10,000 swords. No matter what, he had to think of a way to increase the efficiency of deduction. After experiencing the pleasure of 100 times faster, he would definitely not be used to returning to normal speed. At this moment, his communication pearl showed that someone had sent him a message. He scanned it with his spiritual sense and smiled. After the call connected, a phantom that looked like a real person appeared in front of Riverward. Disciple greets Master. Jiang Xi bowed respectfully. Disciple, we haven't seen each other for a few days. Did you miss me? The wine sword immortal was still slovenly and his clothes were unbuttoned. Disciple has some cultivation problems and would like to ask Master for help. Jiang Xi smiled. The wine sword immortal took a sip of wine and shook his head. Do you feel that your cultivation speed has slowed down a lot? How does Master know? Because all the cultivators who have just left the ancient Tao source world will encounter this problem. Does that mean Master has a way to solve this problem? Jiang Xi's eyes lit up. I came to find you because of this. The wine sword immortal smiled, then he said, search for the Lotus Sword Manual in the Purple Heaven sect's treasure vault. Jiang Xi's mind stirred, and another three-dimensional phantom appeared in front of him. It was the Purple Heaven sect's treasure pavilion. Search for the Lotus Sword Manual. Suddenly, a list of information appeared in the virtual store. Green Lotus Sword Technique, 680,000 points. It's a high-level technique of the Green Lotus Sword Technique. Only disciples of the third sky and above can purchase it. The price made Jiangxi's teeth ache. 680,000 points. After conversion, it would be 68 million top-grade spiritual crystals. He then looked at his balance, 30,912 points. For young cultivators who were entering the ancient Dao origin world for the first time, the points they would be rewarded for challenging the sky-piercing mountain would be 10 times more than normal. In the end, he passed the 5th level and obtained 31,000 points. Previously, in order to buy the tune of 10,000 swords, he had spent 88 points and kept the rest. At that time, Jiang Xi knew how precious the points were, and did not dare to spend them recklessly. But from the looks of it now, no matter how frugal they were, it was still not enough. Master, I can't afford this. Jiang Xi looked at the Wine Sword Immortal. The Wine Sword Immortal smiled and said, "Of course you can't afford it, and even I can't afford it. All the points I've accumulated over the years have been exchanged for wine. However, this is the Sword Dao manual written by your master's wife. I have the authority to give it to you, as long as you swear not to give it to anyone else." Master's wife? Granny Yan? Jiang Xi quickly realized that Granny Yan was the Dao companion of his other master, Daoist Gu. After hearing the Wine Sword Immortal's words, he quickly threw these thoughts to the back of his mind. If that was the case, then all he had to do was swear. Then, he swore a heavenly Dao oath in front of the Wine Sword Immortal. Although the Wine Sword Immortal looked unrestrained, a trace of complicated emotions flashed in his eyes. He said, "The Sword Dao is also the Dao of killing. After you obtain the Lotus Sword Manual, you still need to constantly fight. I suggest that you accept some sect cultivation missions while comprehending the Dao technique. Not only can you obtain points, but you can also increase your battle experience." Jiang Xi nodded and memorized it one by one with a serious expression. In addition, you don't have to worry about immortal Wu Yi. Just cultivate at ease. No one dares to disobey the decree of Dao Lord Nine Clouds. The Wine Sword Immortal said seriously. Dao Lord's decree was invited by Master? Jiang Xi was stunned for a moment. Of course, Dao Lord doesn't have time to pay attention to a nascent soul stage kid like you. The Wine Sword Immortal laughed. Jiang Xi breathed a sigh of relief. The worry that lingered in his heart was reduced by half. He thought that Dao Lord Nine Clouds had long been eyeing him. It was good that it wasn't. Alright, you can comprehend the Lotus Sword Manual first. If there is anything you don't understand, send me a message. The Wine Sword Immortal finally instructed. Thank you, Master. Jiang Xi bowed respectfully. The Wine Sword Immortal drank a mouthful of wine and disappeared. Soon Jiang Xi's communication pearl received a message from the Purple Heaven Sect's treasure pavilion. The internal capacity was huge. Even with his peak nascent soul stage spiritual sense, it took him a lot of time to memorize all the contents in his mind. Master's Dao companion is actually so powerful. It turns out that the Sword Dao can be understood this way. This is a more detailed Sword Dao manual than the Myriad Sword Melody. Just by sorting out the entire Lotus Sword Manual once, Jiang Xi felt that his Sword Dao seemed to have been sublimated. Moreover, he felt that the Sword Dao described in the Lotus Sword Manual was somewhat similar to his Sword Dao. But with his current attainments in the Sword Dao, he still couldn't see how similar it was. After thinking about it, he searched the Eye of the Heavenly Mountain network for keywords. Lotus plus Green Lotus Sword Dao. Almost instantly there was a result. Lotus Sword Immortal, 9th Tribulation Transcender, died 50,000 years ago. Seeing this information, Jiang Xi fell into silence. He thought of the Wine Sword Immortal's information. 50,000 years ago, the Wine Sword Immortal joined forces with the Tribulation Transcender to defeat and seriously injure a Dao Immortal of the monster race. Could it be because of this? Jiang Xi shook his head and temporarily put this guess in the bottom of his heart. Of course, he was concerned about the Wine Sword Immortal. But with his current strength, he was still far from the Tribulation Transcender or Dao Immortal level. It was better to calm down and cultivate. When he was strong enough, everything would naturally be clear. He turned his attention back to the content of the Lotus Sword Manual. The Lotus Sword Manual is a high-level manual that explains the Green Lotus Sword Dao's sword intent level. There are a total of 10 sword techniques, which correspond to the 10 realms of sword intent. Every sword technique has 7,200 moves. If it was an ordinary Green Lotus Sword Way cultivator, they would be able to use it. If it's a normal Green Lotus Sword Dao, It would probably take at least 1,000 years or even 10,000 years to comprehend these sword techniques. Thinking of this, Zhang Xi smiled. With the experience points panel, he was of course not afraid of these troubles. Sword intent corresponds to the great Dao level of conventional Taoist techniques. I hope this manual can help me deduce the sword Dao. He was looking forward to it and started to deduce in his heart. Use the purple firmament sword manual, the sword Dao, and the lotus sword manual to deduce once. After a while, the deduction ended. He carefully sensed it. It seemed like there was a change, but it also seemed like there was no change. Chapter 371. Zhang Xi was very patient and deduced 100 times in a row. Once again he felt the changes in his Dao technique. It's working. This was at least 10 times faster than the speed at which he had deduced the previous time. Of course it was still slower than the deduction in the ancient Dao source world. 10 times faster is better than nothing. Zhang Xi laughed. This way the cultivation speed of his Dao technique had increased again. His master, the Wine Sword Immortal, had given him a big gift. Jiang Dudu, who was cultivating in the palace, also smiled when she heard Zhang Xi's carefree laughter. No matter where she was, as long as she could be by Zhang Xi's side, it was fine. However, Zhang Xi only quietly deduced his Dao technique for a few days before stopping his cultivation, because he had guests. The other young geniuses who had just entered the third heaven came to Zhang Xi's house as guests. Mu Ning and Mo Hong, Feng Lu, Xuetong, Li Xianxian and Lin Linger. Although there was competition between them, their relationship was usually not that tense. After the 6 of them teleported over, they were attracted by the palace built by Zhang Xi and Jiang Dudu. Zhang Xi, you built such a big palace, but I only built a thatched hut. Mu Ning looked around and was envious. That's because you don't know how to enjoy it. Zhang Xi laughed. No, I have to get one later. Mu Ning was unwilling to admit defeat. The other 5 also laughed. Jiang Dudu was just playing the role of the hostess and preparing some food. Although they didn't need to eat anymore, she still made some symbolically. After the tour, the new geniuses of the third heaven sat on the ground beside the spirit spring. Zhang Xi, do you feel that your cultivation speed has slowed down a lot? Mo Hong asked. You guys feel it too? Zhang Xi asked in return, which was equivalent to admitting it. He also didn't reveal that he had solved this problem. How can we not feel that our cultivation speed has slowed down by dozens of times? Feng Lu also sighed. I've asked an old disciple of the third heaven. They all buy the corresponding high-level Dao techniques to increase their cultivation speed. Li Xianxian said. Lin Ling shook her head and said, high-level books are too expensive. At least 100,000 points. We can't afford it. The few of them spoke one after another about the difficulties they had encountered recently. Bloodchild, who had always been silent, suddenly spoke. I'm going to take on a cultivation mission, just like Lord Iron Mountain said. The past 30 years in the ancient Dao origin world have been too peaceful. So much so that we've forgotten that battle is the fastest way to improve our strength. Only by experiencing the terror of life and death would one be able to experience greater power. Before the 9-region genius battle, I experienced countless battles and traversed mountains of corpses and seas of blood, so my cultivation speed isn't much slower than when I was in the ancient Dao origin world. Agreed. The others echoed. Both of them are working so hard. Looks like I can't relax either. Mu Ning muttered softly. Riverward's expression was calm. What had happened on the teleportation platform a few days ago had shocked everyone. They, as third heaven disciples, had noble statuses. However, in front of tribulation transcenders, perfected lords, and Dao lords, they were not worth mentioning at all. Everyone felt that they were weak and did not dare to relax. They could only work harder. The geniuses were not willing to fall behind. Mu Ning and the others stayed at Zhang Xi's place to exchange their cultivation experiences, and stayed for 3 days before leaving. After they left, Zhang Xi fell into deep thought beside the spirit spring. Zhang Daodu stood guard at the side. She knew what Zhang Xi was thinking. The two of them had a tacit understanding. Zhang Daodu suddenly smiled and said, Big brother, since you've already made a decision, just do it. Zhang Xi sighed softly with a complicated expression. A few days ago, Wine Sword Immortal suggested that he take on a cultivation mission. At that time he was still a little hesitant. What Mu Ning and the others said just now had touched him again. Using the EXP panel steadily could indeed increase one's strength. However, there was another saying. Time waits for no man. If he walks slower than others, he would fall behind. More importantly, the Yin family's patriarch's karma divination made him feel a trace of fear. More than 6,000 years ago, this perfected cultivator already knew of his existence. What about the secret of Earth? Did the Yin family's patriarch know? If another karma divination cultivator who was even more powerful than the Yin family's patriarch came, would he be able to directly see the secret of Earth? These were all hidden threats. And his current strength was still too weak. Therefore, he also needed to fight and become stronger as soon as possible. Zhang Daodu also understood this point and did not stop him. The only thing is that no matter what you do, you must come back alive, Zhang Daodu said with a serious expression. What are you thinking about? I don't want to lose my life outside. Zhang Xi rubbed Zhang Daodu's head like before. After Zhang Daodu went to cultivate, Zhang Xi held the communication bead in his hand. With a thought, he entered the cultivation center of the Purple Heaven Sect's intranet through the Eye of Sky Mountain network. A three-dimensional image appeared in front of him, including cultivation missions, cultivation techniques, and so on. He looked at the cultivation missions and found that there were 4 categories: normal, difficult, dangerous, and hell. These were the 4 difficulty levels, and each of them had a mortality rate. Normal missions mortality rate is 10%. On average, 1 out of 10 disciples will die. Difficult missions mortality rate is 30%. Dangerous missions mortality rate is 50%. Hell missions mortality rate is 90%. Zhang Xi thought for a while and entered the dangerous missions. The next moment, a message popped up in the three-dimensional image. Warning: the mortality rate of the missions is only the statistics under normal circumstances. If you choose the dangerous missions for the first time, the mortality rate is 70%. There are more than 1 million core disciples in the Purple Heaven sect, but very few of them can truly enter the immortal realm. More than 60% of them die in various cultivation missions. Level 3 disciple Zhang Xi, I hope you will consider carefully before you choose. Zhang Xi's expression did not change. Of course, it was not that easy to become an immortal. Choosing the normal and difficult missions was indeed very safe, but it would also lose the effect of cultivation. Therefore, he continued to enter the dangerous missions. Suddenly, a series of mission information appeared in the three-dimensional image: Tianyu continent, located in the Purple Heaven Sect's level 4, Yuanqing planet, located in the Purple Heaven Sect's level 4, Batu Mystic Realm, located in the Buddhist Tianyin world, Kongming land, located in the Taoist Grand Manor world, Dotatu continent, located in the Purple Heaven Sect's level 3, Divine Tree Hollow, located in the Guanghan Sect's Luo River world, Jingyue Mystic Realm, located in the Purple Heaven Sect's level 3. There were a total of 2,020 dangerous missions. Zhang Xi roughly looked through them with his spiritual consciousness and left the missions located in the Purple Heaven Sect's level 3. It was closer, more convenient. After careful selection, he confirmed the missions of the Dotatu continent. Chapter 372. The Battle Pattern Continent is a starry sky continent that existed when the third heaven was first established. Its largest diameter can reach 100 million light-years. Its huge area gave birth to countless lives, and after a long time, it evolved into various unique civilizations. There are also cultivators on this continent, but their cultivation method is somewhat different from the original universe. After reading the detailed description of the mission, Zhang Xi was filled with interest about the Battle Pattern Continent. This continent was very interesting. Due to its large area, it has all kinds of rich cultivation resources. There are also immortal Dao powerhouses there, but the strongest is only a tribulation transcender. Moreover, the Battle Pattern Continent has been set up by the powerhouses of the Purple Heaven sect. Even tribulation transcenders can't rush out of it. Seeing this, Zhang Xi somewhat understood. This place was specially set aside by the Purple Heaven sect for their disciples to gain experience and improve. The third heaven was equivalent to a small universe. Living in this world were not only the 1,200 Purple Heaven sect disciples, but also all kinds of life forms in secret realms. The Battle Pattern continent was one of the ancient civilizations with a long history, and its overall strength was very strong. In Jiang Xi's opinion, it was even more powerful than many star regions of the Tao Alliance's 9 regions. The Battle Pattern continent is full of hatred for foreign cultivators. Moreover, they only cultivate the 5 elements, and other Taoists are regarded as heretical. I have the Tao of fire, so it's not a problem at all. I just need to learn the language of the Battle Pattern continent. Jiang Xi chose to accept the Battle Pattern continent mission. The 3D phantom in front of him showed new information. Battle Pattern continent mission objectives and rewards. 1. Obtain a Tao Pattern blood crystal. Completion will give you 10,000 points. 2. Become a Tao Pattern cultivator. Completion will give you 100,000 points. Note: completion of the first objective will be considered a success. In the past 10 million years, only one cultivator who chose this mission has completed both objectives at the same time. Third Heaven Disciple Jiang Xi, you have chosen the Battle Pattern Continent mission. 1 month later, the sect will send someone to send you to the Battle Pattern Continent. A message popped up in the 3D phantom. Jiang Xi let out a light breath, looking at the mission introduction. The Tao Pattern blood crystal only exists in the Battle Pattern continent. It's not found anywhere else in the original universe. I wonder what's so special about it. He searched the Eye of Heaven network, but there were no results. It's probably because my authority level isn't high enough. Jiang Xi shook his head. We'll set off in a month's time. I need to prepare well. Although the mission description is very detailed, it's still an unknown world. He then entered the Purple Heaven Sect's treasure pavilion. After a careful search, he found many good things. Low-grade Immortal Treasure Soul Extinguishing Scroll. One-time use. 1 million points. If used in a surprise attack, it can kill up to Tribulation Transcenders. Low-grade Immortal Level Spirit-type Battle Armor. 360,000 points. It can withstand a full-powered attack from a 3rd Tribulation Transcender at most. Low-grade Immortal Weapon. Flame Devil Saber. 880,000 points. Supreme Grade Spirit Artifact Soul Annihilation Scroll. One-time use. 10,000 points. If used by surprise, it can annihilate late-stage Tao integration cultivators. Supreme Grade Flying Boat. 3,000 points. Maximum speed is 3 times the speed of light. After browsing for half a day, Jiang Xi looked up and sighed. I'm too poor. In the end, he mainly bought a Supreme Grade Flying Boat and a Supreme Grade Spirit Artifact, Soul Annihilation Scroll. The first was to escape and the second was to kill the enemy. These were his trump cards. As for the Supreme Grade Spirit Artifact and Supreme Grade Battle Armor, he had already bought them last time. No matter how fast I am now, I can't reach the speed of light. If I encounter danger, I can directly escape with the flying boat. If I really can't escape, I can only use the Soul Annihilation Scroll. Of course, this was the worst-case scenario. For no reason, he wouldn't provoke an enemy that he couldn't deal with. After placing the order, he deducted the points and waited for the delivery. Because Jiang Xi was in the 3rd heavenly layer of the Purple Heaven sect, just an hour later, the items were delivered by an Essence Soul disciple. After receiving the items, he began to refine the Supreme Grade Flying Boat with all his strength. With the current strength of his spiritual sense, he should be able to refine it within a month. As for the Supreme Grade Spirit Artifact Soul Annihilation Scroll, it was a one-time use magical treasure and didn't need to be refined. When using it, he could directly activate it with his spiritual sense. Time flew and a month quickly passed. On this day, Jiang Xi was fully armed and ready to set off. Brother, remember my words. Zhang Daodu said seriously. Don't worry, wait for me to come back. Jiang Xi smiled and waved his hand as he walked towards the teleportation array. In front of the teleportation array, a young cultivator in purple armor was standing. Senior brother Jiang Xi, I am Luan Yi, a disciple of the 1st heavenly layer. I am under the orders of the sect to send you to the Tao Pattern continent. The young man smiled. Thank you, sorry to trouble you. Jiang Xi nodded and thanked him. He could see through the cultivation of the Essence Soul stage, but he couldn't see through Luan Ye's, so the other party could only be a Tao integration stage disciple. Luan Yi called him senior brother because according to the rules of the Purple Heaven sect, Disciples of lower heavenly layers had to address disciples of higher heavenly layers as senior brother. Of course, this was just a rule. He wasn't stupid enough to act arrogantly in front of a Dao integration stage disciple. Senior brother, you're welcome. Luan Yi chuckled. Obviously, Zhang Xi's attitude made him very comfortable. Then shall we set off now? Luan Yi confirmed. Let's go. Zhang Xi nodded and then waved at Zhang Daodu in the distance again. Luan Yi activated the teleportation array, and the two of them disappeared in the dazzling light of the teleportation array. Cultivate. Zhang Daodu clenched her fists tightly, unwilling to be left behind. After a series of spatial changes, Zhang Xi and Luan Yi appeared on a teleportation platform in the starry sky. In front of them was a huge palace the size of a planet, motionless in the starry sky. Countless cosmic dust and star fragments floated around them. It was as if a great battle had taken place here countless years ago. Below them was a vast continent shrouded in clouds. It was the dough pattern continent. Among the clouds, there were colorful array formations and boundaries circulating. That palace is the Hall of Six Virtues. Many of the Purple Heaven Sect's immortal Dao experts cultivate here and guard the Dou Tattoo continent at the same time, Luan Yi explained. Riverward's expression changed. They'd already trapped this continent with formations and boundaries, yet they'd still placed so many immortal Dao experts here to guard it with great fanfare. It seemed like the Dou Tattoo continent wasn't as simple as the mission introduction said. He became even more vigilant. Senior brother, the life forms on the Dou Tattoo continent can't pass through the boundaries, but Purple Heaven Sect disciples don't have this restriction and can enter and leave the Dou Tattoo continent at will. When the mission is over, you can use the teleportation platform here to return. Luan Yi smiled. I'll stop here. I wish you success in your mission in advance. Thank you. Zhang Xi cupped his hands in thanks and flew down. His figure quickly disappeared into the slowly flowing clouds below. Luan Yi watched Zhang Xi disappear and shook his head gently, sighing in his heart. As expected of a third heaven genius disciple, when he was in the nascent soul stage, he only dared to take on ordinary missions. Zhang Xi, on the other hand, started with dangerous missions. Chapter 373. The fog formed by the array was very thick. Zhang Xi deliberately controlled the speed of his descent so as not to cause a huge commotion. It took him a total of 5 hours to break through the fog and see the land of the Dou Tattoo continent. I have to be careful here. I might encounter cultivators from the Dou Tattoo continent. I should hide and figure out the situation before taking action. With that thought in mind, Zhang Xi quickly landed in a mountain range covered with dense forests. This mountain range truly explained what was called the 100,000 Mountains. It stretched on for tens of thousands of kilometers. As it was in the third heaven world, the spirit energy here was also very rich. The vegetation in the Dou Tattoo continent was obviously much more lush. Towering trees that were thousands of meters tall could be seen everywhere. Zhang Xi strolled leisurely in this mountain range and observed the environment. These details could not be found in the mission information. The plants are already so strong. The animals must not be simple. Zhang Xi's spirit consciousness spread out in all directions. Soon, he discovered many powerful animals that were very similar to the monsters on Earth. Roar! A one-legged bull that was almost 1,000 meters tall rushed out of the forest. It let out a thunderous roar and attacked Zhang Xi. Zhang Xi grinned. His body flashed and he swung his long sword lightly. He did not even use Taoist techniques. The huge one-legged bull's roar came to an abrupt end as it fell to the ground with a loud bang. You killed a level 8 savage beast. Middle stage golden core. Experience points plus 1250. A level 8 savage beast? Any wild beast has the strength of a golden core. It seems that the human cultivators here cannot be underestimated. Zhang Xi remained cautious and continued moving forward. He had to leave this forest first and go to a place with human habitation. Only then could he gather information. With his strength, he would be able to leave very quickly if he ran at full speed. However, to be cautious, it was better to keep a low profile. If a powerful cultivator used their spirit consciousness to discover him, he might be in danger. Not long ago, at the edge of this forest, A four-man warrior team wearing black armor was about to enter the forest. However, they were stopped by another four-man warrior team wearing red armor. Shaolin, you coward! How dare you come to the 100,000 mountains? One of the red-armored youths sneered. Among the black-armored martial artists, a youth with a youthful face said angrily with a flushed face, "And Yuan, don't look down on people. This time, I will definitely hunt down a grade 3 savage beast." Ha ha ha. The three youths of the red-armored warrior team suddenly burst into laughter. Only the pretty girl in red armor frowned and shouted, "All right, if you have the time, think about how to hunt the savage beasts." Yinxiang, you're speaking up for Shaolin again. Who doesn't know that this kid is the weakest martial artist in Black Cloud Academy? He hasn't even killed a level 3 savage beast after 5 years of cultivation. And Yuan sneered again. Shaolin, who was wearing black armor, glared at In Yuan, but he could not refute what In Yuan said. He stole another glance at the captain of the red armor squad, Yun Xiang, with mixed feelings. Being belittled like this in front of his sweetheart made him very uncomfortable. Then, the two teams split into two groups and entered the 100,000 mountains. Shaolin, fight for yourself. In a while, the three of us will create the conditions for you to hunt, but in the end, you'll still be the one to do it. The captain of the black armor squad said in a deep voice. He sighed in his heart. If not for the elders in Shaolin's family taking care of him, he would not have brought Shaolin to the 100,000 mountains to train. Just like what In Yuan said, Shaolin was indeed the most cowardly martial artist in Black Cloud Academy. However, Shaolin's strength was not weak. He just did not dare to hunt savage beasts. Captain, don't worry. This time, I will definitely kill a level 3 savage beast. Shaolin gripped his saber tightly, the muscles and veins on his hands bulging. The four-man team carefully searched the periphery of the 100,000 mountains. With their strength, they only dared to move around the periphery. Once they went deeper, it would be fine if they encountered a level 4 savage beast. If they encountered a level 5 savage beast, they might be completely wiped out. After walking for a while, the tall captain suddenly raised his hand and gestured for everyone to stop. The captain whispered, "There's movement in front. It should be the aura of a level 3 savage beast." The other two in the team immediately became alert. Shaolin, on the other hand, was a little nervous. He was naturally timid, so there was nothing he could do. Whoosh! Soon Shaolin and the other two heard a sound coming from afar. They saw a black-haired young man with a long sword on his back, leisurely stepping on the fallen leaves and walking out of the forest. Phew, it's a human. Shaolin heaved a sigh of relief. The next moment he suddenly exclaimed, "No, there's a savage beast. A level 3 savage beast." A four-eyed savage beast leaped out from the dense forest beside them and pounced on the black-haired young man. It's too close. He can't dodge it. Shaolin gripped his saber tightly and struggled in his heart. That was because he was the closest to the four-eyed savage beast. Save him! While the captain and the other two were still in a daze, he directly rushed out. He suddenly slashed out with his saber. There was a puff. The four-eyed savage beast was directly killed by Shaolin. What? He killed a level 3 savage beast with one slash. He has the strength of a level 4 warrior. The captain and the other two were shocked. Jiang Xi was also stunned for a moment. A level 3 savage beast was only equivalent to a grade A monster on Earth. For a savage beast of such strength to attack him, it was no different from a mosquito pouncing on him. He did not even take it seriously. He could kill it with a breath. He did not expect the young man to be so warm-hearted. He could tell that Shaolin went through a struggle when he attacked earlier. The frequency of his heartbeat showed that his heart was filled with fear. That was an attack to overcome his fear. Not bad, Shaolin. You're so strong. Why are you so timid? The captain laughed. That's right. You killed a level 3 savage beast with one slash. You're even stronger than Anan. Shaolin scratched his head and was still a little shy. Hey big brother, are you okay? Shaolin took the initiative to ask Jiang Xi that attack had boosted his confidence by quite a bit. Jiang Xi gently shook his head. Thank you very much. Captain, I think this big brother isn't very strong. It's quite dangerous here. Why don't we? Shaolin was about to say something. Suddenly there was movement in the forest in the distance. It was the sound of messy footsteps. Shaolin, the captain, and the others immediately looked over. They saw Yun Xiang leading a team of 4 through the forest. It's been killed. On Yuan's expression changed. Their team was the first to discover the four-eyed savage beast. They followed it here, but they did not expect it to be killed. Did you guys kill it? An Yuan's gaze turned to Shaolin and the others with an unfriendly expression. I killed it. Shaolin snorted coldly. Haha, what a joke. An Yuan laughed loudly. Jiang Xi frowned slightly. He had planned to go with the warm-hearted young man Shaolin. He wanted to leave the forest and go to a city with humans. Now that there was a conflict, it seemed that the plan had to be changed. Conflict would bring trouble, and there was no way to keep a low profile. Chapter 374. Missions in the Do Tattoo continent were considered dangerous missions. The official mortality rate was as high as 50%. If it was their first time doing a dangerous mission, the mortality rate would reach 70%. That was why Jiang Xi never let his guard down and treated everything cautiously. He would try his best not to make a move if he could. He kept a low profile. As for Shaolin's safety, Jiang Xi was not worried. That was because this warm-hearted youth was stronger than the one who laughed loudly. A rank 4 warrior is equivalent to an early-stage spirit nurture warrior, and these youths are only 15 or 16 years old. This shows how powerful this continent is as a whole. Just as Jiang Xi was thinking about these things, the confrontation between the two teams of martial artists was still ongoing. And Yuan, don't go overboard. Everyone in our team can prove that this rank 3 beast was killed by Shaolin. Lian Hu said in a deep voice. I don't care who killed you. Anyway, we found the beast first. The materials on the beast should belong to us. And Yuan was very strong. Dream on. I killed this beast. Shaolin was enraged and drew his sword again. And Yuan. That's enough. The red-armored girl Yun Xiang shouted and stopped in Yuan. And Yuan's expression was a little ugly, but he was not as strong as Yun Xiang, so he did not dare to do anything. We only saw the beast and did not attack. It's impossible to determine who did it with just a glance. Yun Xiang reasoned with him. Let's go and find the next one. Before she left, she looked at Shaolin. Do your best. Show everyone your results. Shaolin was stunned for a moment. He looked at the girl's back and waved his fist excitedly. Do your best, Shaolin. Do your best. Haha, Lian Hu and the other two mimicked Yun Xiang's words and teased in unison. Shaolin did not lower his head this time, but he was much braver and his gaze was firm. Beside him, Jiang Xi also laughed. That warm-hearted youth was quite interesting. Not only that, but the red-armored girl named Yun Xiang was not as simple as she looked. Finally, Shaolin invited Jiang Xi to come along again. Without conflict, Jiang Xi was naturally willing. He could follow them and understand the situation here in advance. In Shaolin's opinion, Jiang Xi was probably an adventurer who came to the 100,000 mountains to train. This was because he didn't sense any martial artist's aura from Jiang Xi. That sword also looked ordinary. It was probably just an ordinary weapon. Brother Jiang, where are you from? Shaolin asked curiously. Jiang Xi smiled and said, I've traveled far and wide. The 4 seas are my home. Shaolin thought to himself that he was indeed an adventurer. However, being alone was too pitiful. Sympathy welled up in his heart. Has Brother Jiang ever left the Black Cloud territory and traveled to other cities? Shaolin asked again. No, Jiang Xi replied. Kid, don't ask questions. The Black Cloud territory is so big. If you're not a rank 9 warrior, you won't have the strength to go out. Lian Hu patted Shaolin's head and smiled apologetically at Jiang Xi. As the captain of a small team of warriors, he was naturally more knowledgeable than Shaolin. Lian Hu always felt that this black-haired youth named Jiang Xi was not that simple. This was because Jiang Xi was too relaxed. In this dangerous 100,000 mountains, he could still be so calm. Jiang Xi did not care. These youths who had not even reached the golden core stage could not see his strength. He was thinking about Lian Hu's words just now. Black Cloud territory and rank 9 warrior were 2 key pieces of information. There were hundreds of millions of tribes in the Do pattern continent. The area of each tribe was at least 1 million square kilometers. Above the tribes were various territories, such as the Black Cloud territory. Above the territory was the main city. The so-called rank 9 warrior was only a cultivator in the late stage of the golden core stage. According to the mission information, after a cultivator in the Dou pattern continent reaches rank 9, he can cultivate a rank 9 warrior. Then you will be able to practice the Dou pattern secret technique and become a 1 pattern doja, which is equivalent to having the strength of a golden core full foundation stage cultivator. The second goal of the mission is to become a 2-stripe Dou master. From this point of view, a 2-stripe Dou master is only at the nascent soul stage. The difficulty is not high. So why is the mission reward as high as 100,000 points? Jiang Xi was puzzled. I don't know what the so-called Dou pattern secret technique is. It seems that I have to find one to practice. The mission introduction given by the Purple Heaven sect did not describe the Dou pattern secret technique in detail. He had to explore it himself. In another part of the forest, Yun Xiang's 4-man team found another rank 3 savage beast and quickly finished killing it. And Yuan kept silent with a sullen face. He had decided that when he returned to the Black Cloud Academy, he would quit this team. He had his own rules of conduct, and the style of Yun Xiang's team was obviously inconsistent with him. Let's go and find the next one, Yun Xiang said expressionlessly. But at this moment, whoosh whoosh whoosh, 6 men in black blocked their way, each of them exuding a powerful aura. A rank 8 warrior and 5 rank 7 warriors. Yun Xiang and Yuan's faces changed greatly. Young Miss Yun of the Green Flame Tribe? The leader of the men in black asked in a muffled voice. As soon as the words came out, Yuan and the other 2 teams looked at Yun Xiang in shock. Then, as if avoiding the plague, they hurriedly distanced themselves from her. You are from the Lord's mansion? Yun Xiang calmed down. Yes, hand over the Dou pattern secret technique of your Yun family, and I can let you die quickly. The leader of the rank 8 warriors nodded. Come and get it if you have the ability. Yun Xiang snorted. Then her aura suddenly erupted, and with a boom she fled into the distance. She is actually a rank 7 warrior. The leader of the rank 8 warriors was shocked. Old 6, you stay and deal with those 3 little guys, he said. And Yuan and the other 2 were suddenly anxious and panicked. Sir, we are not from the Yun family. We have nothing to do with the Yun family. Spare our lives. The leader of the rank 8 warriors did not listen at all and chased after Yun Xiang with his men. The remaining rank 7 warrior sneered and walked towards the 3 of them, raising his saber. Yun Xiang ran for her life anxiously. Although she hid her strength compared with the rank 8 warriors, she was still a little weaker. Moreover, the other party had 5 rank 7 warriors. Father, mother, grandfather, I may have to disappoint you. The revenge of the Yun family. Yun Xiang's heart was filled with despair. 10 years ago, the Yun family that ruled the Green Flame Tribe was exterminated overnight. The one who did it was the overbearing Black Cloud Lord's mansion. She was the only Yun family member who escaped at that time. All these years, the Lord's mansion had been declaring the Yun family of the Green Flame Tribe as heretics. That was why Yuan and the other 2 members of the team had seen her as a scourge and immediately avoided her. Capture her alive and bring her back for the Lord to search her soul. Behind them, the warriors of the Lord's mansion caught up. Swoosh! That level 8 martial artist leaped and blocked Yun Xiang's path. Yun Xiang took a deep breath and faced these people with her sword. She was going to fight to the death. Whoosh! Suddenly a breeze blew past. The 5 martial artists who were blocking her fell to the ground with a plop without any signs of life. Chapter 375. There were a few thuds. A rank 8 warrior and 4 rank 7 warriors all fell to the ground. What? Yun Xiang's eyes widened in disbelief. How did they all die? At that moment, she saw a black-haired youth standing under a towering tree not far away. It's him? The person beside Shaolin before. He quietly killed a rank 8 warrior and 4 rank 7 warriors. With such strength, could he be a 1-pattern doja? Yun Xiang suppressed the shock in her heart and tried to calm herself down. She walked in front of Jiang Xi. Senior. Thank you for saving my life. She bowed respectfully. Don't be in a hurry to thank me. I have a condition for saving you. Jiang Xi smiled. Senior, please speak. Dou pattern mystic technique. Just these 4 words made Yun Xiang fall into silence. She was asking herself, was it worth it? The Yun family was exterminated because of the Dao pattern mystic technique that they obtained by chance. Now, in order to survive, she had to hand over the Dao pattern mystic technique. Was it worth it? Yun Xiang was a decisive person and quickly thought it through. Her family was gone. As long as she could survive, so what if she handed it over? Use your spiritual sense to input the Dao pattern mystic technique. Jiang Xi handed her a blank jade slip. Yun Xiang looked at the jade slip and confirmed her guess. This black-haired youth was definitely a one-pattern doja. After a while, she returned the jade slip to Jiang Xi. Make another oath to confirm that there are no flaws in the Dao pattern mystic technique in this jade slip. I will say it and you will recite it. Jiang Xi smiled. Yun Xiang did as she was told. Jiang Xi nodded in satisfaction. Then there was an item in his hand. It was a transparent mask. Seeing this scene, Yun Xiang was shocked. A spatial treasure. I'm not taking your things for free. This is a disguised treasure that I used in my early years. As long as one isn't a two-pattern Do master, they won't be able to see through the mask's disguise. I think it should be of help to you. Jiang Xi took out the low-grade spirit artifact mask that the one siblings gave him when he went to Murong Planet. A one-pattern doja was at the perfected golden core stage, while a two-pattern Do master was at the nascent soul stage. This junior will never forget senior's great kindness. Yun Xiang was pleasantly surprised and hurriedly thanked him. It's a fair trade. Riverward smiled. Low-grade spirit weapons were not worth mentioning to him now. In comparison, the Dao pattern mystic technique was something that he wanted. Moreover, the way of refining weapons in the Do Tattoo continent was very backward. Even a low-grade spiritual weapon was exceptionally precious to them. Take care of yourself. I've taken care of the last black-clothed man for you. After saying that, Jiang Xi disappeared. Yun Xiang grabbed the impersonator's mask and bowed 3 times in the direction where Jiang Xi had been standing. Then, he entered the depths of the 100,000 mountains without looking back. Inside a secluded cave, she refined the impersonator's mask and understood the function of this artifact. What a powerful magic treasure! With this item, I don't have to be afraid of being hunted down by the Grand Lord's mansion. As long as one is not a two-line Do sure, they will not be able to discover my true identity. Yun Xiang was extremely excited. Although the Overlord's mansion had a two-striped Do sure, a strong person of this level would not personally search everywhere. Therefore, she was very safe now. As long as she changed her identity, she could continue to lurk in the Black Cloud territory and look for an opportunity to take revenge. On the other side, Jiang Xi returned to Shaolin's team. He had only left for 3 minutes. The speed of killing people and giving treasures was very fast. On the contrary, it took the most time for Yun Xiang to input the Dao pattern mystic technique into the Jade Scroll. Brother Jiang, you actually took so long to pee. Shaolin said. You rascal, if you don't know how to speak, don't speak nonsense. Lian Hu slapped his head. Jiang Xi smiled. It's fine. His spirit sense could cover a radius of 1,000 kilometers. When he discovered Yun Xiang's situation, he did not intend to make a move. After all, with such a large area, there were many people who encountered danger. It was impossible for him to save someone when he saw them in danger. He only decided to make a move after hearing about the Dao pattern mystic technique. Then he used the excuse of peeing and left for a while. After that, Shaolin continued to ask Jiang Xi about his experience of wandering around curiously. Jiang Xi, on the other hand, made up some things. The 4 youths also listened with great interest. The 4 people in Shaolin's team stayed in the forest for another day and hunted more than 10 level 3 savage beasts before embarking on their return journey. As for the girl Yun Xiang, Jiang Xi's spirit sense discovered that after she completely refined the imposter's mask, she changed her face and left first. During that period, Jiang Xi did not make a move again. Therefore, in Shaolin's eyes, Jiang Xi was really an ordinary adventurer. On the way back, Jiang Xi continued to chat casually with them and obtained a lot of useful information. However, they had only traveled for 3 hours when there was a big movement in front of them. Rumble! The earth trembled slightly as if there were 10,000 horses galloping. Shaolin, Lian Hu, and the others immediately became vigilant. Soon, a group of more than 100 black-clothed people appeared from the direction of the Black Cloud territory. They rode on powerful tamed savage beasts and rushed toward the 100,000 mountains aggressively. They brushed past Zhang Xi and the others and did not stop. It's the dark operation of the Lord's mansion. Why are there so many of them? And the leader seems to be a level 9 warrior. Did something big happen? Lian Hu lowered his voice and said in surprise. Dark operation. Xiao Lin and the other 2 young warriors also exclaimed. Zhang Xi's heart skipped a beat. It seemed that there was something similar to life slips in the Dou pattern continent. Otherwise, the Lord's mansion would not have received the news of their deaths so quickly. After the group of black-clothed people went far away, the youths dared to speak louder. Legend has it that the dark operation of the Lord's mansion committed all kinds of crimes. Once the tens of thousands of tribes under the Black Cloud territory offended them, the entire tribe would be annihilated. At least, the ruling family of the tribe would be exterminated. At worst, the entire tribe would be slaughtered, one of the youths said. Rumor has it that 10 years ago, the Yun family of the Green Flame tribe was exterminated in this way. Another youth nodded in agreement. Don't talk nonsense. Lian Hu glared at them. Xiao Lin remained silent at that moment. He thought of Yun Xiang. However, he knew that Yun Xiang was not a member of the Yun family of the Green Flame tribe. After all, the Black Cloud Academy was in the Black Cloud territory. If there was a problem with Yun Xiang's identity, it would have been found out by the dark operation. At that moment, Lian Hu looked at Zhang Xi quietly. He always felt that this black-haired youth was strange. However, how could his actions be hidden from Zhang Xi? Zhang Xi did not care. This vigilant youth could not have discovered his strength. Then they continued to walk in the direction of the Black Cloud territory. After seeing the dark operation of the Lord's mansion, the youth sped up and wanted to leave this place as soon as possible. After another half a day, the group of black-clothed people rode on savage beasts and returned from the back. Stop! A loud shout rang out. The group of black-clothed people quickly stopped them. The 4 youths immediately became nervous. Zhang Xi did not move. They could not tell if he was nervous or not. Chapter 376. A black-clothed man came before Zhang Xi and the 4 youths. He held a portrait in his hand and shouted, "Have you seen this person?" It was Yun Xiang in the portrait. Yun Xiang. The other 2 youths cried out in surprise. On the other hand, Xiao Lin and Lian Hu tried their best to remain calm. Whoosh! The rank 9 warrior in the lead appeared in front of them in an instant. Where did she go? This person's gaze was gloomy, as if he had slaughtered countless lives. I don't know, the 2 youths said in trembling voices, their bodies trembling. Sir, we are all students of Black Cloud Academy. We saw her before coming to the 100,000 mountains. Lian Hu mustered up his courage and said, "Bring them all back and search their souls for interrogation." The rank 9 warrior said expressionlessly. Xiao Lin, Lian Hu, and the other 3 immediately panicked. However, at that moment, a cold shout sounded in the rank 9 warrior's ears. Get lost! The rank 9 warrior's expression changed drastically, and he turned to leave. Retreat! The other black-clothed men who were about to capture them were stunned for a moment, but they obeyed the order and retreated with their leader. Rumble, more than 100 black-clothed men rode their savage beasts and quickly left, not daring to stay any longer. That level 9 martial artist was extremely shocked. What a powerful spiritual sense! Is it a 2-striped Dou master? Fortunately, the other party didn't have any killing intent. Otherwise, the other party would have shattered my soul. Who is it? It's definitely not those 4 youths. The aura of that young man can be confirmed to be a rank 9 warrior. Can't be him either. Could it be the Dean of Black Cloud Academy? That old guy is also a 2-striped Dou master. Did he order me to retreat because I wanted to capture his student? Or perhaps it's a passing 2-striped Dou master. He thought a lot, but there was no definite answer. This matter must be reported to the Lord as soon as possible. The people from the Dark Department came quickly and left quickly. Xiao Lin, Lian Hu, and the other 2 youths were dumbfounded by this scene. What happened? Zhang Xi sighed in his heart. As expected, he could not easily make a move. Previously, for the Dao pattern mystic technique, he made a move once and the consequences came. However, he was not a cold-blooded person. He could not watch Shaolin be taken away by these people. Therefore, he secretly roared and used his spiritual sense to intimidate them. After the people from the dark operation of the Lord's mansion had left, Lian Hu and the other two youths breathed a sigh of relief. They were full of doubts about the sudden departure of the dark group. At the same time, he was also guessing why Yun Xiang was targeted by the dark unit. Only Shaolin was in low spirits. He was worried about Yun Xiang's safety. Being targeted by the dark unit, it was hard to have a good ending. Jiang Xi and the four youths continued onward. Nothing unexpected happened for the rest of the journey. When Shaolin, Lian Hu, and the other three youths saw the huge city of Black Cloud territory, they were completely relieved. Big brother Jiang, let's go to the Black Cloud Academy and have some fun. Our academy is one of the places with the best scenery in the Black Cloud territory. Shaolin regained his smile, but observant people could still see the worry in his heart. Maybe next time. I still have something to do. Jiang Xi shook his head. That works too. Shaolin did not insist. After entering the city, Jiang Xi separated from them and quickly disappeared into the endless stream of people. Seeing Jiang Xi's figure disappear, Lian Hu let the other two youths return to the Black Cloud Academy first. He pulled Shaolin to a secluded place. Shaolin, don't you think Big Brother Jiang is very suspicious? Lian Hu asked in a low voice. I don't think so. Isn't Big Brother Jiang just an ordinary adventurer? Shaolin's face was full of doubts. You pighead. Have you ever seen an ordinary adventurer brave enough to go to the 100,000 mountains? Along the way, I've been secretly observing him. No matter what danger he encountered, his expression did not change. It was as if he did not care at all. Think about it. What was he doing when we were hunting the savage beasts? Shaolin's face changed and he recalled carefully it seemed to be true. When they were fighting with the savage beasts, Big Brother Jiang was not afraid or excited. He was very calm. It was as if he was a detached observer, observing everything. Also, why did the dark operation of the Lord's mansion suddenly retreat? Lian Hu asked in a low voice. Could it be that Big Brother Jiang secretly scared them away? Shaolin's eyes widened. These are just my guesses. Lian Hu nodded. I suspect that Big Brother Jiang is very likely a one-stripe doja. This kind of powerhouse can already dominate a region in the Black Cloud territory. So I suggest that you quickly tell Grandfather Shao about this matter. If anything happens in the future, you can be prepared in advance. Shaolin's expression became serious. In the crowd not far away, Jiang Xi smiled and then disappeared. This little guy is quite vigilant. He was not afraid of being discovered as long as others did not find out that he was an alien. In terms of strength, a one-stripe doja was at the peak of the golden core stage, a two-stripe dosher was at the nascent soul stage, a three-stripe do spirit was at the primordial soul stage, and a four-stripe dozong was at the unification stage. He had the confidence to deal with anyone other than the four-stripe dozong. The city of the Black Cloud territory was very large and could be called a giant city. Therefore, after Jiang Xi sneaked in, he was like a drop of water sinking into the sea, inconspicuous. He bought a quiet house and stayed there for the time being. Of course, the money was obtained from the warriors of the Lord's mansion when he saved Yun Xiang. Rank 8 warriors were still very rich. After staying, he did not immediately go out to inquire about anything. He took out the Dao pattern secret technique he obtained from Yun Xiang and looked at it seriously. The cultivation method is different from the original universe. What is the difference? After looking at it for a moment, Jiang Xi had the answer. The cultivators of the Dao pattern continent also cultivated Dao techniques. The difference was after the cultivators of the original universe successfully comprehended Dao techniques, the Dao techniques were not in their bodies. Only during battle would they use their spiritual consciousness to connect with heaven and earth, and use various Dao techniques to attack. The cultivators of the Dao pattern continent, on the other hand, integrated Dao techniques into their bodies and turned them into Dao patterns to strengthen their bodies and use their bodies to fight. Ignoring physical data such as strength, speed, and toughness, just looking at physical strength, the physical strength of a one-stripe doja, perfected golden core, was equivalent to a low-grade spirit weapon at most. The physical strength of a two-stripe do master, nascent soul, was equivalent to a middle-grade spirit weapon at most. The physical strength of a 3-striped Dao spirit essence soul was equivalent to a high-grade spirit weapon at most. The physical strength of a 4-striped Dao grandmaster unification path was equivalent to a supreme-grade spirit weapon at most. With such a strong body, it's no wonder the way of refining weapons here is so backward. Very few people use spirit weapons. Jiang Xi shook his head. That was not the main point. If that's the case, the Dao pattern secret technique is a method of refining the body. However, it is different from conventional martial arts. It uses Dao techniques to refine the body. No wonder Shaolin, Lianhu, and the other youths have such strong physiques. It turns out that they are all on the path of refining the body. However, there is still a problem. After the Dao technique reaches the level of the way of heaven and earth, even the body of an essence soul would find it difficult to withstand the power of heaven and earth. Not to mention the power of the great path and heavenly path. If one dares to integrate it into the body, they are definitely courting death. If this problem is not solved, it will be very difficult to cultivate this method of refining the body to a high level. Chapter 377. If I don't solve the problem of my body withstanding the Dao arts, then this cultivation technique is useless. With this question in mind, Jiang Xi continued to read. After a while, he finished reading the entire Dao pattern mystic technique. His eyes lit up as he thought to himself, as expected, the cultivation civilization of the Dao Tattoo continent had been passed down for many eras. If he could think of the problem, the cultivators here would definitely be able to think of it as well and would have a solution to it. This Dao pattern mystic technique's description was, after cultivating to a 1-pattern Dao warrior, if you want to progress further, you will need to fuse with a Dao pattern blood crystal if you don't have any special physical talents. Only by increasing the limits of your body can you withstand stronger Dao arts and cultivate to a higher level. The Dao pattern blood crystal is a treasure left behind by the gods, and is extremely precious. Legend has it that only the 5 major temples possess the Dao pattern blood crystal. Other than the temple that will give the various main cities and territories some Dao pattern blood crystals, other Dao pattern cultivators would want to obtain this item. One must have a great contribution to apply to the 5 major temples. In addition, fusing with the Dao pattern blood crystal not only requires a strong physique, but also an extremely strong willpower. If one doesn't have a strong willpower, no matter how strong their body is, it will be difficult for them to fuse with more Dao pattern blood crystals. After reading this, Jiang Xi closed his eyes and sorted out the information seriously. The 5 major temples are the gold pattern, wood pattern, water pattern, fire pattern, and earth pattern temple. They correspond to the 5 elemental Dao arts. No wonder the Dao Tattoo continent views Dao arts that aren't of the 5 elements as heresy. There might be some secrets behind this. After muttering to himself for a while, Jiang Xi opened the experience panel again. After checking the changes on the panel, he smiled. Mystic technique, Dao fusion technique, 3 Dao fusion techniques, 3 Dao fusion techniques, 3 Dao fusion techniques, 3 Dao fusion techniques. Dao pattern technique none 13 million. In the mystic technique column, there was a new item, Dao pattern technique. However, the low-grade impersonator's mask is actually exchanged for such a great reward. Jiang Xi suddenly thought of something and frowned slightly. A mystic technique that was recognized by the experience panel was naturally not an ordinary item. Ever since he knew about the existence of karma divination, he had started to pay attention to karma. He had taken advantage of others today, and he might have to pay them back in the future. Of course, from another point of view, he had saved Yun Xiang's life. In exchange for the Dao pattern mystic technique, it should be an equivalent exchange. He just didn't know if this was how karma was calculated. If you see him in the future, make it up to him. Jiang Xi put this matter to the bottom of his heart for the time being. He turned his attention back to the new secret technique, the Dao pattern technique. Since the level and experience points are displayed, I can directly use experience points to level up. Let's try leveling up first. Jiang Xi was filled with anticipation. He still allowed his clone on Earth's first moon to refine the spiritual fruits and increase his Dao pattern arts level and experience. 3 million experience points required the same amount of spiritual energy. However, now that his avatar was at the full circle of the nascent soul stage, the efficiency of refining spiritual fruits was very high. In just half a day, the upgrade was completed. In that instant, Zhang Xi felt that both his main body and his avatar were changing at the same time. The nascent soul in his lower dantian, a wisp of leaf fire in his left hand, a wisp of gale in his right hand, and a small sword in his torso each separated a Tao intent. The 3 Tao intents spiraled and condensed into one, turning into a tricolored Tao pattern halo that merged into his body. Immediately after, the various physical attributes of his body, such as strength, speed, defense, toughness, and so on, began to undergo drastic changes and continue to strengthen. After a moment, the changes ended. Zhang Xi opened his eyes and gently clenched his fist. Puff! He didn't use any strength at all, but the air produced a muffled sound. Such strong strength, and my defense has also increased. Is this the physical attributes of a low-grade spiritual artifact? No, it's even stronger than a low-grade spiritual artifact. This is a Tao pattern technique that has fused 3 Tao arts. Zhang Xi's figure flickered in this quiet house, leaving behind afterimages as if it was his real body. This was a characteristic of speed that had reached a certain limit, and the afterimages were like a body. Moreover, he didn't use any spiritual power in this move, but only relied on his physical strength and speed. The sword intent has brought a strong attacking power to the body. At the same time, the explosive power of the body has increased, and it is also lighter than before. It has the characteristics of the true meaning of leaf fire and gale. In terms of speed alone, this state is already comparable to 10% of my complete nascent soul stage speed. If I add spiritual power and gale Tao, my speed will be even faster. After experimenting, Zhang Xi came to a conclusion. The Tao pattern technique is more suitable for close combat. In terms of Tao art attacks, the cultivators of the original universe are stronger. In terms of physical strength, the cultivators of the Tao pattern continent have the advantage. Finally, Zhang Xi looked at the changes on the experience panel. Tao pattern technique, 130 million per pattern. His body was now the so-called one pattern Doja. My Tao art is at the level of the Tao of heaven and earth, but what merged into my body just now was the Tao intent that was separated from the Tao of heaven and earth. Therefore, it can continue to improve. After attaining 2 pattern, the strength of my body should be able to surpass a middle-grade spiritual artifact. The body of a middle-grade spiritual artifact was terrifying. First of all, a middle-grade spiritual artifact could not damage it at all. At the very least, a superior-grade spiritual artifact could cause him harm. And to truly damage his body, a supreme-grade spiritual artifact was the only way. With this thought in mind, Zhang Xi once again let his clone refine the spiritual fruit. The experience level of the Tao pattern technique increased rapidly. Soon a day later, a problem arose. Before he could upgrade to 2 pattern, his body experienced a tearing pain. From the inside to the outside, tiny cracks appeared all over his body. It was as if cracks had appeared on glass. Is this the limit of the body's tolerance for Tao art? Zhang Xi frowned. The spiritual power of the complete nascent soul stage circulated, and those tiny cracks immediately disappeared. Then, he looked at the progress of the Tao pattern technique. Tao pattern technique, 50 million/30 million per pattern. If I only integrated 1 Tao art into my body, I might be able to directly upgrade to 2 pattern. But now that I have 3 Tao arts, I have reached my body's limit in advance. However, the benefits of integrating 3 Tao arts at the same time are also very obvious. Although I haven't reached 2 pattern, my current physical fitness is not much different from that of a middle-grade spiritual artifact. Zhang Xi carefully felt the changes in his body. Next, he tried many times to continue to upgrade the level of the Tao pattern technique. But every time cracks would appear on his body. He understood that if he really forcibly upgraded it, there was a high chance that his body would collapse. The Tao pattern blood crystal can increase the limit of the body's tolerance for Tao arts. I can only do it through this thing. Zhang Xi pondered carefully. The problem was, where could he get it? Directly go to the 5 great temples to apply? What a joke. There were definitely tribulation transcender powerhouses there. He would be walking into a trap if he went there. Chapter 378. As night fell, the Black Cloud territory was still very lively. Jiang Xi was like an ordinary tourist, wandering around the city, enjoying the night view of different civilizations. But there was always darkness hidden under the prosperity. Along the way, he saw many pedestrians being taken away by the dark operation of the overlord's mansion. Some were just ordinary people. They cried and said that they were innocent. But the men in black from the dark operation ignored them. They even knocked them out in front of their children and took them away. If anyone resisted, they would be killed directly. Blood would flow all over the ground. As for those passers-by, other than some fear, they had no other emotions. They were numb. After the men in black left, everything returned to normal and continued to be lively. The cultivation civilization is prosperous, and the rules have become simple. There are only 4 words left. The weak are prey to the strong. This thought appeared in Jiang Xi's mind. Then he shook his head. To the battle-pattern continent, he was just a bystander. This had nothing to do with him. Until late at night, he stopped at a secluded place. A man in black appeared in front of him and said sternly, "Check your identity. Take out your identification. You're the one who delivered yourself to me." Jiang Xi smiled. The man in black was stunned. In the Black Cloud territory, when everyone saw the dark operation, other than fear, they had never seen such an arrogant ordinary person. Few before he could react, Jiang Xi was already in front of him. Soul search. Jiang Xi pressed his hand directly on the top of the man in black's head and used the soul search technique. In less than a breath, the man in black lost all signs of life. A wisp of fire fell. The man in black, who had the strength of a level 7 martial artist, turned into nothingness. Not even ashes were left behind. Jiang Xi was not soft-hearted. These people were originally ruthless officials. They did things cruelly and their hands were stained with blood. So be it if he killed them. It was just to create some value for him. Then, he returned to the secluded house as if nothing had happened. As expected, it's better to be simple and crude. He had thought for a long time but did not know where to find the Tao pattern blood crystal. But he found someone to search their soul, and he had a clue. The 5 sacred palaces will occasionally bestow some Tao pattern blood crystals to these city lords and lords. According to the memories of this rank 7 warrior, the suzerain of the Black Cloud territory, Changliang, is a 2-line dosher. He had once received the Tao pattern blood crystal from the Fire Pattern Temple. This was exactly the information Jiang Xi needed. Under normal circumstances, if you don't have any special physical talents, after becoming a 1-line doja, you will be able to become a 1-line doja. If he wants to improve again, he will need to borrow the power of the Tao pattern blood crystal. Therefore, Overlord Changliang must have fused with the Tao pattern blood crystal. Most importantly, Overlord Changliang had previously obtained a few Tao pattern blood crystals. Did he still have any left? This was an uncertain factor. The probability of that is very high. Since he has already reached the level of a 2-line dosher, he will definitely want to continue improving. As a feudal lord who rules over tens of thousands of tribes, his network is different from ordinary Tao pattern cultivators. He might have other ways to obtain the Tao pattern blood crystal. It's him. Jiang Xi quickly made a decision. However, we still have to be cautious. A 2-line dosher wasn't a threat, but it was always right to be cautious. Through the soul search just now, he also obtained another piece of information. The atmosphere in the suzerain's mansion had been rather tense recently. An unknown 2-line dosher had appeared in the Black Cloud territory, so the entire suzerain's mansion was on high alert. There's no hurry. Let's wait a little longer. Jiang Xi was very patient. The next day, he was meditating in the courtyard when he suddenly opened his eyes. His spirit sense had been scattered around the courtyard, and he noticed that someone had come to visit. He got up and went to open the door. He saw Shaolin and a burly old man. Jiang Xi felt the aura of a 1-line dosher from the old man. No wonder he could find his residence. A 1-line dosher had a very high status in the Black Cloud territory. It was not difficult to find his location. After the two of them entered, "Brother Jiang, this is my grandfather." Shaolin scratched his head and was a little embarrassed. "I am Xiao Yan." "Greetings, Lord Jiang." Xiao Yan bowed solemnly. "Oh, you can see my strength?" Jiang Xi was a little surprised. "My lord's aura is that of a 2-line dosher. I can still see that." Xiaoyan said. Jiang Xi nodded lightly. He had been studying how to continue improving his Dao pattern technique for the past 2 days. Therefore, his aura had been unstable, and he had not completely restrained it. A two-line Dao sure. Brother Jiang, you are indeed not an ordinary adventurer. You deceived me so badly. Xiaolin opened his eyes wide. How can you say that? Impudent. Xiaoyan scolded him. Then, he smiled apologetically to Jiang Xi and said, I've made a fool of myself. It's fine. This kind of young man has a good temperament. Jiang Xi shook his head. I'm here to thank you. A few days ago, the suzerain's mansion's dark department was investigating the Yun family clansmen. If it wasn't for Lord Jiang secretly intervening, my grandson would have been taken away by the dark department. Xiaoyan stated his purpose for coming. Recently, several families that used to be related to the Yun family were exterminated by the dark department of the suzerain's mansion. Even 2 one-line dojo were implicated and killed. The suzerain's mansion is powerful. Even if I'm a one-line dojo, I'm not worth mentioning in front of them. If my grandson really fell into their hands, his life would be in danger. Xiaoyan finally sighed. He was also an old man. After Xiaolin told him about Lian Hu's speculation that day, he concluded that Jiang Xi was not an ordinary person. Now that he saw it with his own eyes, he knew that his guess was right. That day, it was indeed Jiang Xi who made a move and scared off the dark department of the suzerain's mansion. After Jiang Xi heard this, he suddenly understood. No wonder he saw so many men in black on the streets yesterday. It was to track down the young girl Yun Xiang. He did not get this information from the previous soul search. I've also heard about the Yun family recently. But why were they exterminated? Jiang Xi pretended to be puzzled. Lord Jiang has traveled around. It seems that you're not too clear about the situation in the Black Cloud territory. Xiaoyan laughed and then explained, the Yun family's matter is also a secret. Not many people know about it, and I happen to be one of them. The Green Flame tribe is one of the top tribes in the Black Cloud territory, and the Yun family is the family that rules this tribe. 10 years ago, their ancestor returned from the fallen godland and became a two-line Dao master. At that time it caused a sensation because even in the entire Black Cloud territory, there were only a few two-line Dao masters. Later, a traitor appeared in the Yun family, and the secret of the Yun family ancestor was spread out. It turns out that he was able to become a two-line Dao master because he obtained a powerful Dao pattern secret technique in the fallen godland. Lord should know that the Dao pattern secret technique that we cultivate can only cultivate one of the 5 elements Dao patterns into a Dao pattern to improve the realm of the body. However, the Dao pattern secret technique that the Yun family ancestor obtained can integrate multiple Dao patterns into the body at the same time. At this point, Xiaoyan's face could not help but reveal an excited and yearning expression. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.